We do need to start the meeting. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. This meeting for Thursday, May 28th. And roll call, please.
Vice President Zuka is absent. Director Cotton,
Here.
Director Patel, here. Director Covington, here. President Bella.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, very good. So please rise and Drew, would you lead us into the pledge of allegiance, please? Sure. Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. That will lead us to the public comments.
No comment.
No comments, good. We'll move on to agenda review. Anybody? We're good with the agenda?
Yep.
All right, cool. Acknowledgement, we have none. Consent agenda. So we have the approval of the minutes from the meeting of April 23rd. Expenditures,
Expenditures, I have a quick question slash request. There were, I think, 4 items that under description were just listed as for shop. And I was just wondering, in the future, if it was possible, everything else is so specific and so easy to review. And on those items, it's not a lot of money, but I just, if it could be specified what they are, that would be great.
okay. So Randy, we get that? All right, good. And we also have the rules. The directors.
On the,
Ordinances, yeah.
on the rules,
Mhm.
on 3.5, it looked to me like an edit that had been proposed previously didn't make it in here. Because it still says steps down from the dais, which we don't have anymore. It was later in this document, it says, steps out of the room, which is fine. It's a very minor thing, but I just thought we should harmonize it with what we were planning to do before.
Okay.
And there's a funny little typo on what's now page 19 of this whole document. The director must disclose. It's just,
Your eye caught it, right?
right.
It just landed on it.
That's all that it was.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
hardly a big, it does not change the sense of it.
Must be.
Musty, we're all very musty here. Exactly.
Spell check doesn't catch.
Exactly, because it's a word.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
Then we also have the approval of ordinance 134. Limiting the use of potable water for non-functional turf. Ordinance 135, that closed. Then the approval of Reso 2026-14 for the elections. And no questions there, especially for those running, right? Okay. And approval of Reso 2026-15 establishing the surplus for the 3 pieces of equipment we identified. So.
Can I ask a weird
That's it.
question on the surplus?
Yes.
Based on what you guys made some estimates of what these might transact for, but
Might
given,
bring- Yes.
see what they might bring in,
Uh,
but given given what their issues are, it doesn't matter whether or not the estimates are accurate, but it just seemed like we might not get much at all, just get them out of our hands.
Yeah, and that's why we're getting rid of them, is they don't have a lot of value to us either.
Perfect.
Especially not for working condition.
When they're posted on the site, just on number 2, the Caterpillar, I think it should say non-operational and not no operational. Tell the person who has the Place of Humanities.
Okay. Anything else, anybody? Okay, so for consent agenda, we need a motion to approve all of them.
So move.
Okay,
I second that.
So I have a motion by,
With the edits
Huh?
called out.
with what?
With the edits.
Oh, with the edit, absolutely, yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. So,
Director Cotton,
yeah, yes,
Director Patel,
Yes.
Director Covington,
Yes.
President Bella.
yes. Okay, hearing and appeals, none. So we'll go to item number 7, the capital improvement program.
Yep.
The general manager or
Yep.
operations.
I will introduce it and
Please.
if there are any further discussion after that, Ruben can elaborate.
Mhm.
So we are asking to approve a professional service contract with a little bit of construction in it. We do need to make some edits to the contract that was attached. We can talk about that momentarily, but the contract overall is with Insight Water Technologies to perform an assessment of our Hillcrest transmission main as part of the transmission main water assessment project in the amount of $350,000 plus a contingency of $56,000. We can come back to the budget. I'll explain the project a little bit. So the 2020 capital improvement project plan that the board approved included the transmission water main assessments. There were 2 parts to it. The first one was done in 2022 by Pure Technologies on the tunnels transmission main, which was a 24-inch ductile iron pipe. And the second half of that project was the Hillcrest transmission main, which is a 20-inch concrete cylinder pipe. And I'm not sure what the linear feet of the project is, but it's described in the scope of work. So we'll basically be hooking up to that line from the Sequoia tank site in Redwood City and going down to where the Old County Road project ended, where it connects into that line. And so basically what this is doing is it's sending a probe through the line, which will be able to assess mainly the wire wraps around the concrete line and whether there are any defects or breaks in those wire wraps, which is what contributes to the structural integrity of the concrete pipe the most. So we're partnering with HDR to do the engineering and the site and the design and the investigation on that project. We worked with HDR and Insight to develop the scope. And yeah. Juven can elaborate.
Yeah, no, I think that really covers it. This is a budgeted item. We've been talking about it for a while. We get water through 2 main sources, tunnels and Hillcrest. And so it's really important for us to understand the condition of the pipes that are feeding the district. So we did tunnels first. It was a little easier to do. It was a newer pipe. And luckily, it turned out great. The investigation showed the water main was in good condition. So that's fantastic. Moving on to the older pipe, which is this Hillcrest one. As Sarah said, they're very similar tool that we use for tunnels. So we're familiar with the process now. The difference is it's a much older pipe. It's a different type of pipe. And it's through urban corridor. Rather than tunnels was through open space. And we interviewed, we're not using the same firm. We interviewed a new firm. We interviewed the previous firm we used. And we decided that this new firm is better suited for this kind of investigation. And as Sarah said, it's the provider of the tool, and also they're partnering with an international engineering firm, HDR. So it's a really good partnership. I think we're gonna get good information out of this. And the last thing is the approval that's on for the board to consider. We'd like to add a little bit of language in there that we're gonna reevaluate the contract that's attached. Right now, it's a professional services agreement, but we're gonna work with district council to see if it makes sense to change some of the clauses to a construction contract. So we're gonna work with the district council to see what makes sense. So, but no changes to the scope or the budget of the project.
I will note there's actually a third company we talked to as well, so.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. Yeah, I forgot
But
about
I,
that.
and I think, William probably talked to more, but there were three that we interviewed.
Yeah, yes, thank you.
So these didn't go to bid, we just evaluated them based on criteria.
There's only 2 or 3 firms that do this kind of work. So we did a massive net before we did the tunnels a few years back, just to see what technology is out there and the information it will provide back to us. So this robot that essentially floats through the water is really sophisticated with paddles and it's a really neat technology. And so this gave us what we needed. And so before tunnels, we did more of a robust outreach so before we did that first go around. And then for this one, essentially our thought was to use the same company, but then technology had changed so much that we decided to recast a little, like a smaller net and such.
And in the end, the technology that we're selecting here is very similar to the company we used before. The pricing is better, on the one that we are selecting. And we just overall have a lot of confidence in this team.
So, yeah, go ahead, please.
No, I was just gonna say, I had a couple of questions.
Yeah, because I do too, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure sort of like I understood the fiscal impact is we're,
Sorry to get back to that,
yeah, so we're coming in under budget, the way I read this.
So far, yeah, we budgeted for 575 and the contract is for 350. There's some additional monies budgeted depending on what it comes back with, there might need to be additional evaluation of the line through a more detailed analysis of the defects. And then possibly, some construction associated with if a probe gets stuck, there's the contingency in there as well. They don't expect it to, but there's a $30,000 contingency should there be an unanticipated obstruction in the line or something like that. And then this general engineering report, my understanding is for if there is significant defects found, it would be to evaluate those a little more thoroughly. And then the rest of the money that we budgeted for is for the planning and design through PCG and the potential additional civil work and construction that might be required.
Got it, that would be a different for most likely.
The civil, the construction, it's essentially putting in the pits, a way for this probe to get into the water, into our water line. So it would be we'd probably use we have on-call contracts, with construction contractors. So the dollars are small enough where we'd probably use someone of that nature to do it.
Okay. And then this is fascinating, by the way, but my other question, I was trying to understand how we translated the proposal into the services proposal for approval, because there were some things that I just didn't understand how to match them up. One was like, there was a general engineering report, but there was a hydraulic assessment for 12,000 and structural analysis and mitigation, there was like a TBD. So, are those things reflected in what we're actually going to be acquiring? Because I don't see
A couple
So,
of them.
The hydraulic analysis, looked at and decided that it didn't actually add a lot of value to this project. And then the structural analysis, that was in their proposal is TBD. That's not included, that's if we really find something out of the ordinary that we need to do additional work, it can't be scoped. And hopefully it doesn't happen, but if that happens and it's beyond this contingency that's approved, then we would come to the board and ask for more and explain.
Essentially, if the tool finds a big defect, we could use them to help us rectify it. So out of that last page of the proposal, we're using the number 3, the general
engineering.
as a potential add-on.
Okay, perfect.
Can we just go back to Joanne's Director Covington's first question about the budget estimate?
One second.
Oh, sorry.
Are you done with the
Yeah,
questions?
I am, those are my 2
Yeah,
questions,
sorry,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah, you're on.
I just wanted to follow up on the cost question. So, it looks to me like maybe this is exactly at budget because the inspection and base services, which is what I understand that is being proposed here, is 350 in both the forecast and then the actual estimate we have. Am I misunderstanding something there? I also had a horrible time trying to line up what these two separate things were on
Yeah.
the first page, like,
The budget estimates were sort of put together before based on what they gave us, but also based on costs for the design for Juben's work and the civil work and construction, so that's an estimate. The additional contingency in the original estimate is a complete estimate, so it's that 42,000 wasn't really based on anything in particular, just sort of a holding for extra.
We don't.
So Director Patel, the 575 is what's in the budget,
Right.
right? So that was at the beginning of the year, we had budgeted that
Mhm.
based on an estimate.
Yeah.
The cost that we're asking for approval is the 350, which is the cost that they gave us, the proposal, plus $56,000 in additional contingencies. So that's how the 406 came about.
thank you,
Yep.
that's really helpful. And I had one other weird question about that whole extraction thing, because on page 86, it says that, if everything is the way that we said it would be, in other words, the flow is right, the valves are open, so the tool doesn't get jammed somewhere or whatever, then the contractor bears the costs of tool retrieval, not us.
Yes.
So that's why I didn't understand why we would have to have a contingency for getting the tool out.
So this line was built decades ago in the 30s. Was one of the 30s
Jeez.
or. Sorry, don't quote me on that, but it's really old.
Oh.
Really old. And we think we know what's in the line, right? And so we've given the contractor all the information that we have. They've looked at it and said, yep, based on the information you've given us, this thing can go and make all the 90 degrees and
Got
blah,
it.
blah, blah. But if there's something funky there that we didn't know about, they didn't know about,
Yeah.
then
That makes
Then
perfect
it's on us.
sense. Yeah.
then it's on us, yeah.
Yeah. And then my last question is about, in the contract, because it's two, are Insight and HDR separate firms?
They are separate firms, but HDR is a sub to Insight. So we're not
okay.
doing two separate, our contract is purely with Insight. And then they will use HDR as needed.
That's fine, because, yeah, I just want to know who's gonna be accountable for the deliverables, and in fact, the contract didn't say anything about subs, so we might want to just make sure that they are allowed to, contractually do that.
That's a good point. Well,
Jim, has this pipe been inspected before, or it's never been
Never
inspected
been
to this
inspected.
point?
Oh, my question is, when was the last time it was inspected?
never.
We never, right?
I feel a little nervous
How many
now.
Hail Marys have we said?
Well, I needed it, we needed it inspected, just because it's
Sure.
such an Achilles heel of our district. We save a ton of money because this whole flat area, down in the industrial area, it's all served by the pressure from San Francisco PUC. So we don't have to pump, it's all system pressure, so we save a lot on electricity, so if this line goes down, then we have to pump from tunnels up and then downhill. So, yeah, we need to. I am nervous about what's in the ground, because a lot of times you don't know, there may be a valve that's buried, and the top of it is buried, but in a way, we need to know about that also, right? So.
And this will take how many days to process, or we just have it one?
Yeah, they need, once they start, they need to keep going, right? Like they can't pause.
Can't stop.
It goes with the flow of the water. And so, I think tunnels, they did it in one day,
Okay.
one long day, I think, so.
And this.
It's a pretty cool tool. They actually assemble it here. And so when it's happening, we'll let the board know if you guys want to come check it out. It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
There's something on page 83, about, an inspection planning phase where, they will do a go, no go meeting and decide if this tool is actually feasible to use. Do you think, like, do you have any sense of how likely it is that you might get to that point and they would be like, can't do this?
We've done a lot of task one already with them.
Okay.
But they still need to, we still wanted this in their scope. So we get contractually, we get a yes, no from them, right? So we want something like, hey, you guys looked at everything contractually and said it's a go, but we and them wanted to make sure that before this contract went, that we've done all, because we don't want to go through this process and then they say no.
No,
right? So-
exactly. No, this is great. Thank you so much.
Juben or Sarah, does the camera give you like a 360 view of the inside of the line?
I believe this one has, gosh, was this the tool that had?
They said they would put 3 or 4 cameras.
Yes,
in
I
some
believe-
lighting, but
I
they
believe
can't-
it does.
But they can't
Okay.
promise.
The cool thing about that, Louis, is on tunnels, we found that there's actually humps in our line where we have air pockets.
Of course.
And the camera showed that, and so we're actually installing
You
in the
probably
process.
have a relief valve too on top, right?
You would hope, but we don't. So we're actually, well, we're in the process of installing it at those precise, so it gives us the GPS of those little, because back when they were installing it, they were just, blow and go at that point, and so. And then especially with tunnels, because it's open space, things can move. But since these are, all of our water essentially is going through these two lines, even if you have an air pocket, essentially it reduces the diameter of the pipe. So you need more pumping to get through. So you think you have a 24-inch pipe, but in effect, you have an 18-inch pipe because the rest is air on top, right? So we're using a lot more energy. So those are the things, those are the kinds of information we definitely need. So out of tunnels, luckily the pipe was in great shape, but we found these air pockets that we're now addressing with air valves.
So my assumption is as the camera is moving, if somebody is actually looking at the camera.
I don't think they're looking at it at that moment,
They
but
record it?
they record it and then they look
Yeah.
at it later. But it's not as exciting as it sounds. It's very- I don't know if you've seen sewer, I know you probably.
Sewer
do.
upstairs.
Yeah, I've
It's
seen
very,
sewer. I've seen-
AI,
I can guarantee you that yours is more exciting.
yeah, I don't know, man, you have a lot of stuff that gets flushed down the toilet, so.
We had an entire jail full of uniforms that we had to pull out, yeah.
So, yeah, freshwater doesn't have any of that, but, the cameras, the camera will give us any, chips or defects in the pipe.
Correct, yeah.
But at the end of the day, even when you have that, if the structural integrity of the pipe is sound, you don't want to dig down and, cut into a pipe for something like that. So the more important information are like GPS, because then we'll have an exact layout of our pipe and then the structural integrity of it. So-
Because in the discussion here, I read that the wire wrappings reinforcing the outside of the pipe.
Yes,
So this is a concrete pipe with the reinforcement outside of it?
it's a very unique pipe. So we had to pipe,
So the
they don't make it-
reinforcement is exposed to
the what?
the reinforcement?
No,
Is
it's
it?
embedded in shotcrete.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
All right.
it's embedded. But, so I'll give you, I don't wanna geek out on engineering, but I will for a second. Too late, yeah, you got me go, it's your fault. So we had to we tied into this pipe at F Street. On Old County Road,
Yeah.
because that's where the Old County Road project ended. And we tied into this pipe. This pipe was so old and no one knew about it that we actually had to find a retired engineer that
Yes,
worked for
I
this
remember that.
manufacturer
Yes, yes.
down in Los Angeles, hired him as a consultant. paid him hourly to help us find a way to tie into it.
Oh my
So we actually had to chip the concrete, if you remember, to expose the rebar. We
Yeah.
welded stuff to it, a flange, and then we tied a regular pipe to it.
Okay.
So it's a really old pipe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully,
How are you keeping the water moving at the 1.5 feet per second during?
We measured, so this is all, flow into operating zone, right? So we're not controlling it with a pump or able to control it much. We've measured it to see if it has that sustained rate, and then if not, we're going to control it with opening hydrants or other ways of.
So when we did this with San Francisco, when I was at Palo Alto on the Palo Alto pipeline, we wouldn't let them flow into the system because we were worried about this digging up a bunch of turbidity and sediment that might have settled out and then creating a big slug of stuff. So I don't know if you've sort of thought of that, or if they thought of that, or how you're gonna purge and deviate if all of a sudden.
That's a good point. Our thought was that this gets so much usage that it has it's not as flat as other areas that sediment has already, it gets flushed out, but you're right, you have a good point, so.
We forced San Francisco they wanted us to maintain the 1 feet per second, and we told them no. We forced them to go to storm drain, dechlorinate, and then take it offline, wash the whole thing with chlorine, and then bring it back on, purge it till it was clean, and then we would take the water again.
Okay.
I don't know how turbid the water went, but you know Angela at PUC, have you ever worked with her?
I haven't worked with her, but I know her.
She ran the project. She might be able to, or one of the engineers might be able to tell you how successful it was.
How big was the line?
36.
So ours is a little bit smaller.
Yeah, but it's the same. I think I don't know whether it was inside or not. The image is the same. It's got the fan, the.
Yeah, they all look the
they all
same,
look kind of the Same thing.
It's not the one that caught fire, is it?
No, it's not. My knowledge.
That one was.
Not on my project.
Yeah, that was
I believe they did use Xylem Pure Technologies, which is the one we used before.
So just, what, my only concern on this is not any of the technology, it's more the turbidity.
Yeah,
And
okay, fair enough.
then do we accidentally get any back T issues all of a sudden, because we mobilize a bunch of turbidity into the zones and then do your next back T round and, it ends up being a water quality issue.
Yep, we'll talk this over with the team a little bit more.
I mean.
Our initial thought was because of the slope and the usage of the water, we shouldn't have that problem, but it's a good point. So we'll talk it over. So.
But even if we don't maintain exactly that flow rate, because this has GPS in it, even if it slows down for a little bit, it won't matter because we'll still know where it was, right? Based on the GPS. Or is it too heavy to move unless it's at that rate?
It is heavy, so you want that, it'll settle down if it's not moving. But I think you could start it back up, but I think once they start going, once they start going, they want to maintain it at a steady rate. And so it is important to make sure and that's part of the startup, that task one is to walk through and think through those.
That's why we didn't want to be responsible for maintaining the demand, because of diurnal demands and all that. I guarantee we were gonna maintain any kind of consistent flow, so we said, this is your problem. You figure out how to, do the flow management. They opened up some hydrants and they would end up cutting into it and discharging, but we were talking about maybe hydrants. Then you can control it a little bit better.
Yeah, our plan is if it slows down to control it with hydrants, but looking at the demand that we have for the time that this tool is in the pipe, it looks like, shouldn't say look, we will meet it, but our plan B is to have hydrants ready if it doesn't. But the turbidity is, we'll look into that too. So. unfortunately, we do have to be responsible. I mean, it's our pipe and our consultant, like, we have to be responsible for this.
You can't do what I did, which is to tell San Francisco to
Right,
pick up.
right.
Which is great, it was great.
But great lessons learned. Sharing the lessons learned, absolutely.
All right, any more questions now that everybody is such an expert on this?
I think, Director Khan, did you have a question?
No, I was gonna ask about the turbidity as well, so I'm glad you brought that up, but I'm
Okay.
good, thank you.
Just point of clarification, we do have subcontractors in these.
Oh, we do, great, thank you.
Yeah,
I
and we're
didn't
not
see, I looked, but I
responsible
didn't
for
see it.
their costs, so.
In our professional services agreement, we do, but I took that question from Director Patel, that was in their scope of work, that some
Yeah,
is
that
enlisted,
might-
or,
that might be where it is, yeah, that I was, yeah.
so I'll clarify that, but.
Thank you so much, Dr. Long.
All right, all good? Okay, very good, this is a resolution, so I do need a motion.
A motion to approve?
Okay, motion by Director Patel, second,
I will second.
second by Director Covington, roll call, please.
Patel? Yes. Director Covington?
Yes.
Director Cotton?
Yes,
Vice President Zuka?
Yes,
President Bella?
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to the regular business agenda, receive summary report on preliminary draft fiscal year 25-26 operating and capital budgets. General Manager?
All right, yes. So this is your first full look at the proposed budgets for next year. The Finance Committee did meet earlier and looked in detail, and then last month, when you approved the rate adjustment, it was based on the preliminary budget at kind of at a high level. But so this is the opportunity to go through in a little bit more detail. We don't want to go kind of, painstaking detail. I'll have James walk through kind of all the key highlights, and I think we'll probably spend a little bit more time talking about the capital budget, because there's a few things we just want to kind of call out and understand there. But I do just kind of want to talk just a little bit about the process. I think I talked last meeting about it, but this is, a several months long development process there. When you kind of break down the actual each account number in our budget, broken down much finer than the summary level you see here. There was well over 100 lines that we went through, management went through, James went through, other staff went through. Everyone looked at what they were all responsible for independently. We came together through multiple meetings and worked through it. And in doing so, we looked, not only at the cost we've incurred this fiscal year to date, but we look at how much we've spent in each individual item for the last, I think there's probably at least 10 years of data in the spreadsheet, but looking most closely at the last, 3 to 5 years, depending, as well as obviously thinking through all of our anticipated needs. So just want to point out, it is a pretty thorough process, and I know you were looking at it at a high level, but I wanted to give you that background. So.
Yeah, and just one other key piece of that is we don't just look at the preliminary budget, but we have to have a starting point. So we're also looking at what's happening now. So, we went through the mid-year budget process before I took off. While I was gone, we're still evaluating as things are happening, as things are changing, to make sure that we've got a solid starting point for fund balance that we want to know all our resources that we think we're going to have by the end of the fiscal year. So we've got a good starting point from that. So within the budget, so this is for the 26-27 budget. And so we're just seeking input today, fairly high level. We'll be bringing back the full budget as well as the appropriations limit for approval in the June meeting. So we'll bring that to you next month. So, first of all, thanks for Kat, her team, then my team, Kamiko in particular, for, I got the budget started back in February while I was working on mid-year. I was also working on this, and then Kamiko took it to this point here. She met with the finance committee, so I just wanted to send a thanks to her. But so yeah, the finance committee met on April 21st, went over the highlights, and some of the highlights include the water commodity charges, which is our bread and butter revenue source, as well as our fixed system charges. So for the upcoming fiscal year, we're looking at $15.5 million for the commodity charges, and that's based on usage. So that's
pure commodity. And then the fixed system charge is $5.3 million. And this is based on the cash flow water rate projection that we had adopted last year. Was it last year? Yeah, beginning of last.
2024.
Okay, almost 2 years ago. But we had updated with the current year numbers to make sure that everything's current. So we don't want to base that information on any stale data. Interest revenues, we're looking at about just a little over $1 million, and that's based on our laddering for the treasuries that we've been having, that treasury program, as well as the extra or the funds that we've invested in our COP. So this includes both restricted and unrestricted. The majority of this is restricted interest revenue that's going to be used towards capital projects in our COP fund. So we have noted that the interest revenue, we're not going to hit our arbitrage threshold as of related to those bonds. So we're making sure we're staying under that cap, so we've got no penalty there. The salaries and benefits piece, we're projecting at about $4.5 million, and that's considering the district is fully staffed. This does include a vacant operator. This also includes overtime. It includes I believe it was a 10% increase in health insurance premiums, because we know those have just been going up and up and up. So those are the significant events that we're considering, or the significant salaries that we're considering. Purchase power is about 7.6. Purchase water is about 7.6. And again, that's also based on the cash flow rate projections that we did a couple years ago, and then updated for current events. And then finally, debt service is almost $3 million, and that matches our debt service schedule that we had when we issued the bonds last year. So that includes debt service for both the 2015 COPs as well as the 2025 COPs. Equipment purchases, we've got a number of ideas for equipment purchases. That includes a rebuild of pump 3, includes a EV pickup, an air valve. So total equipment purchases, and you'll be able to see the detail when we get into that, for about $400,000. And then I will just actually take you down to the capital budget at this point to show you some of the changes that we've made. So this does look a little bit different from the way it was presented last year. Kamiko had the great idea of showing the full project budget instead of what we're expecting to spend. So that way you know where the cash flow is going to hit. So you'll see at the top there the capital equipment. So we've got for the current year, we've got a medium EV pickup. We have that rebuild I mentioned, meter replacement, as well as cathodic protection at $100,000. And then we go into the PAYGO and debt funded capital projects. So right now we have about $3.7 million in PAYGO funded projects. And the big one is the one that we had adopted this past year for $2.4 million, which is the Lower Notre Dame, Willow Lane, Oak Knoll Cross Country WMI. And then also a rebuild for Hallmark tanks, for $875,000 is the next largest one. And then down below, you'll see the debt funded projects. In particular, I want to bring your attention to so we've got the Tacoma tanks replacement, which is one of the big ones, SR 101 crossing at Pamp Hospital, which we'll get into. Those are the big ones. And then what you'll see here is Folger, we have reduced it down to $500,000 for the current year, and we're looking at potentially stratifying that between both PAYGO funded projects as well as debt funded projects.
Stratify the 500,000?
No, stratify the total project between the two groups over time, once we fully flesh out what the future scope is going to be for that.
And just to talk about what we're contemplating for this fiscal year is we're looking at, so if we're going to move the trailers from Dairy Lane while we construct Dairy Lane to Boulder, we still need to do the electrical improvements associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also know that there's stormwater site work improvements that should be done. And so we don't have the answers and a solid estimate yet. We're working with and discussing with the city to make sure we can do that limited scope without having it snowball into the additional things. So working through that 500 is kind of a wag, but it's in there as a placeholder so that we have it.
And then just finally, the last thing to note is when you look at the future flows, those are all in today's dollars. So, one thing that we have to account for is inflation coming up, so.
No,
And when we do cash flow modeling, that does count for the inflation.
Yes,
But it's just,
yeah, but the way we present it here is in today's dollars.
It just gone up as of reports today.
yeah.
Can I ask kind of a very high level question on this? So, we're at our June board meeting, so the next one, we will receive a detailed budget to be approved. Our fiscal year ends on June 30th. I'm feeling a little nervous. I'll tell you why I'm feeling nervous. I'm nervous because I haven't been through this cycle before. And if we see it on, I don't know what day our next meeting is, I don't know, June 25th,
June 25th, yeah.
25th. And but we're supposed to have a budget approved 5 days later. It doesn't leave a lot of breathing room if there's anything.
Yeah, so one of the issues that we come across is there's what we call the appropriations limit that we have to adopt along with the budget. We don't get that information until the beginning of June. So and we get that from the Department of Finance, so we have to coordinate the two, and the district only has the one meeting a month. Traditionally, I think every year, at least every year that I've been here, and then looking past budgets, the board has always adopted the budget in that meeting in June. I've run into situations where if they don't adopt it, what they'll do is they will, if there will be a board meeting or a resolution that say, we'll just do a continuation of the current year budget until we get to the next meeting and hold a special meeting to like really discuss the budget, if it really comes to that. So there are options to move around. We do still have some, because we budget conservatively, which means we budget our revenues low, we budget our expenditures high. We have some amounts that we can actually roll over that have already been approved during the current year. We can roll over to the next year. So there are definitely options to do that.
Thank you. I don't
So-
anticipate it because we had a big discussion about all the capital projects previously.
The periodic reports that we receive here will only just give us a pretty good idea, so. Unless the sky falls, I mean, we shouldn't be, we shouldn't have any surprises in June. And besides that, in between, there's also, the finance committee that meets and look at certain things, so to avoid that situation of coming in at the last minute and we're seeing it and there's surprises, there should not be any surprises. So
Thank you very much.
that should be kind of the process.
And the other consideration is, you can always separate the capital budget from the
Yes.
operating budget. So if it comes down to that, we can look at just the operating budget and then come back to the capital budget. One thing I want to note is, based on any input from today and then any events or circumstances that come across over the next couple of weeks, there may be some minor tweaks to the budgetary schedules, but we're not expecting any significant changes to that. But you may see a couple tweaks to the numbers. I was looking at some of the numbers and kind of just want to round some of them, right? Don't want to have like a dollar hanging out here and there, but nothing significant is what we're not expecting anything significant. So
Thank you. I mean, we had a really, really fulsome discussion around all of the capital projects and the schedules and priorities and risks, which I think was tremendously helpful. So I don't think that as long as those remain basically as they are, it's what we had already agreed. So that's terrific.
And most of the discussion do circulate around the capital.
You're right.
The operation of the
It
operation,
is
yeah.
what it is.
You have to pay people, you have to buy
Totally.
water, you have to, that's a given.
Yeah.
But the capital is where we usually have most of our discussions here, so.
and then just one more note, you had mentioned more details. So the budget package that we'll provide, it's these schedules here. We don't necessarily do an account because the budget is adopted by function. Not necessarily by object level, so it's not going to be at the line item level, but you'll just see a more comprehensive budget package that'll show like account definitions or like an introductory page and whatnot, so.
I don't want to see a lot.
Yeah. A nerd like me wants to see everything, but most people don't, so.
All right, any other comments on this topic? So the package will come to us, maybe, what, a week, 10 days before the meeting, hopefully?
I mean, I was planning on the typical schedule, but if the board wants to see the budget earlier.
Yeah, we can make
plan for
that happen, that's easy.
That would be actually
Yeah.
helpful.
Maybe, maybe not for the entire package for the meeting, but for the budget
Just
package.
The staff
If it
report.
could come a little bit earlier,
Yeah. I can get
to
that.
give people a little more time to look at ahead of time,
That's really good.
that's all.
All
Alright.
right, may I ask one
Anything else?
question?
Yeah,
When I
please.
look at the Dairy Lane, and what's being done there. If I read this right, it means that sometime in the 28-29 year. It'll be completed. Am I reading that right?
That is the target, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And that the bulk of it unfortunately is really out in the 27-28 fiscal year.
Yeah, we, because we were on the timeline to do Folger first, and then as soon as Folger was constructed, we would start Dairy Lane construction. We are, working with our architects and OCMI to look at the schedule. We do think we've been able to accelerate the schedule, somewhat to start construction next summer. But that's the timeframe we're on.
Thank you. And it doesn't, the only impact about when the payments get made has to do a little bit with inflation, right? And so, but all of this money, if it's exactly what it is, was budgeted, we all agreed that it would come out of the COP, so. Yeah, whether it comes this year or next year is not a big,
Yeah, it's not like we're waiting on revenue to come in.
Right.
We haven't.
thank you.
All right, anything else? Very good. Okay, so this was just the report, so we'll move on. We'll move on to item 8B, which is the review of public outreach and communication process for year 2 field maintenance and improvement project, and we have this update. Oh,
Yeah, so it is a little bit interesting because this came as a result of a public request. But it does seem that there is no public present tonight. So Sarah can give an introduction, and
Okay,
take them off here.
okay, Sarah.
all right, so you can go to the next slide. This is just an agenda of what we'll be talking about tonight.
Mhm.
Just kind of an introduction about why we're here, going over the goals of what we're gonna be talking about during this meeting. Our overall goals of public outreach, the types of projects that we will typically conduct outreach around. Types of outreach methods that we use. I'll give a couple of project examples, recent project examples, one example of before my time, but and then we would like to get your feedback. So again, the reason why we're here today was because of, we had a public comment at the February board meeting when we were talking about the outreach around the, Exborn and West Belmont tanks. And, because we don't get very many public comments, the president and vice president thought it would be a good idea for us to follow up on that. That's why we're here today, but we don't have our public here. So we were hoping that they would be here so that we could engage them a little bit. So knowing that each outreach plan is tailored for each project. And based on the specifics of that project, we would just like your feedback on our current approach and any adjustments that we need to make in the future. So in general, public outreach goals, we want to provide early and clear notices so that we can inform the residents and businesses about our project timelines, our scopes, any local impacts that our project is going to have on the neighbors. Ideally, before the work begins, we want to open up all of the channels for feedback and give the neighbors and citizens a voice to ask questions and to share input on any decisions that are affecting their areas. we want to make sure that we're coordinating with all of the agencies, so the city, Belmont, City of San Carlos, we want to make sure that if they have any permit requirements, telling us to plant trees or telling us we need traffic control or noise control or anything like that, we want to make sure that we're addressing those and that those requirements are communicated and addressed clearly. We want to make sure that the residents and citizens know who to go to. So we want to provide clear and consistent points of contact from the project start throughout the closeout. So whether that's sometimes it'll be a consultant working on the project, sometimes it'll be usually a combination between the project manager on site and district staff. And generally we want to earn the community's trust, right? We want to stay responsive, be accessible for them, and be accountable through all phases of construction. So the common types of projects that we will use outreach for, like I mentioned, the tank projects, whether we're recoding a tank or rebuilding a tank, refurbishing a tank. As mentioned, the Exborn West Belmont tanks are the most recent example. There was a lot of outreach conducted around the Tacobin tanks in the past, and there will be again in the future. Same for Hallmark. The pipeline replacement projects, whether we're doing repair or extension projects. So like the DLNO projects and our upcoming the Landwell project, we'll be doing a lot of outreach around that as well. Facilities improvements or large equipment replacements like pump station upgrades. Any routine major maintenance that we're doing. So if it's like a major hydrant maintenance or valve work, or if there are small main break projects, we want to outreach to smaller areas that are affected. And then we also have like major water main breaks that might result in shutoffs or require boil notices or have traffic impacts, things like that. We will provide outreach around that. And then of course the project why we're here was because of tree maintenance and the vegetation management work that we did. So for any outreach, generally we have key considerations and a process that will follow. We want to identify what type of audience that we're trying to reach, whether it's residents or businesses. We will generally draw a boundary, whether depending on what type of project it is, will determine the extent of that boundary of inclusion. And then also we want to consider local compliance, so aligning with city ordinances, permits, and requirements. So once we identify the type of audience, we will look at, we'll work with our billing software and with our administrative staff to identify the particular residents and come up with a list of those owners within the project zone, and we will target them directly. The most common types of outreach that we will target are usually direct mail, definitely website updates, door hangers, and meetings. And we want to engage the community before work starts to gather their feedback and to provide a clear point of contact, as I mentioned. So the type of outreach methods that we will typically utilize: in-person door-to-door outreach. So this is where we're having staff visit homeowners, staff or consultants will go door to door, usually by foot. Near the project sites, we'll introduce ourselves, answer questions, and gather initial feedback. There's also brochures and formal notices. Those can either be hand delivered or mailed to the homeowners within the project area. It'll provide the project details, the contract information, the start dates, things like that. The distribution areas are usually determined by the proximity to the active work zones. Typically, we will hold meetings with homeowner groups to discuss the project plans, project impacts, our progress and schedule, and also to post any feedback. We also have direct coordination with the city of Belmont and city of San Carlos on permitting requirements, as I've already mentioned. Those are typically for what they define as complex projects. And so things like Folger and dairy, and I don't know how they define complex projects, but
yeah, I mean, so everything is so kind of case specific.
yeah.
But you know, things like when we have our tank projects, they don't actually have like approval authority and permit authority. But we do still share with them what we need to do, so it, you know, depends on the requirements of each, but we try to communicate as much as possible, what's going on, so that they're not blindsided by questions, because inevitably they get questions, first, you know, often first.
They have a specific outreach plan that's required for what they define as
Yeah, when we have to get a building permit,
right.
or from them, like for furniture, then there's a 300-foot radius, and
We have to tell them what we're planning and how we're going to do it, and they look at it and provide feedback, so. All of our capital improvement projects and major maintenance projects are posted online, as well as our regular publications, such as the water line. For major incidents that we might have, we will create a press release for distribution and publication. So when we had the main break, I have an example on the next page. We had a large main break and we closed a couple of schools, you know, we created a press release in case we were contacted by the press. We have something prepared and hand out. And we also have the text notifications. So the customers can sign up for text notifications, and when we have maintenance or breaks or anything that we need to notify, we will do that through text notifications as well. This is just a slide showing a couple of the examples. As I mentioned, there's an example here from the water main break at the Alameda de las Pulgas, where we closed the schools. I don't think we had to actually distribute this to any like media outlets, but
media did contact us, but we were prepared with it,
Yeah.
and it made it very easy to respond to their questions, because they weren't actually all answered, so.
And we shared this with the cities as well, because we knew they were getting contacted. This is just a screenshot from our webpage with the capital improvement program and all the different areas where people can find project information there. Little example of our current version of the water line, where we have capital improvement program updates. And just a really simple screenshot of what one of the text notifications look like. So those go out, Michael sends those out as we're working on the project, just to keep people in the immediate areas notified. So an example of a project, this was the one I mentioned that occurred before I got here, but the El Camino Real Improvement Project, where we did approximately 3,600 feet of water main replaced, including valves and hydrants and service laterals and fire service. This was in January 2021. We used a consulting firm for this outreach effort. The construction itself was in, I believe, early 2021. So the outreach was conducted in September through November of 2020. We had a project webpage. There were door-to-door packets of information handed out to 358 customers along El Camino Real, mostly businesses, I would think, commercial businesses and industrial businesses, probably some residential, but mostly businesses. This was during COVID, so there was a virtual community outreach meeting. I do have it on here that I noted that it was poorly attended. We don't have specific data on that. So that was just feedback that I got from staff and from our outreach consultant, John Davidson, who kind of helped with this effort as well. There were also there was opportunity for people to schedule one-on-one meetings with staff and the consultants as well. So those were the follow-up virtual meetings and phone calls with the individual residents. And there was a communications log that I found with the 358 residents, and when they made contact with each one of them, and you know what type of interactions were had. So there wasn't a lot of data there, but that was the intended effort anyway. And so this is just a slide showing some of the examples of that particular outreach. So you can see the virtual community meeting invitation. There's an example of probably what was posted out on the street for traffic control and notifications. The customer connect and the improvement project construction highlights were part of the project packet. As you can see, we've got the outreach representatives, one of them being Michael Anderson, who's now our superintendent, and then one from TRC, which was the outreach firm hired to conduct outreach for us to help us out with that. And this is the most recent example that you all are probably pretty familiar with, the Exborn and West Belmont tanks recoding. This is an ongoing project. We're almost provided a little update earlier. We'll talk a little bit more about it later. We've had a couple of meetings with you all about it. There's a current project webpage that includes frequently asked questions that were part of the mailed letter and project brochure that went out. It went out to about 109 residents, and we based that circumference on a 300-foot radius and captured all of the residents within that 300-foot radius. We also sort of drove around outside of that to make sure that we caught any outliers that might not have been caught within that 300 feet that had a good sight line to the tank site. This is the one where we utilized the online survey to get people's feedback on what they cared most about for the project, including, you know, the color, the tank color. That's how we selected the tank color. We also held an in-person community meeting, which no one showed up to. We feel like that effort was a pretty good one, because we've had very few complaints or issues from neighbors during the project. I think we've had one complaint about noise that was mitigated fairly easily and quickly, and as far as I know, we haven't had
any, yeah.
so we considered that to be a pretty good outreach effort, maybe minus the meeting. We'll get your feedback on that. This next slide is just an example of what that outreach looked like, and you all have seen this before, but it's just a refresher. Some results from the survey and from the project materials that went out. All right, and the tree maintenance project. This project came in light of the winter storms, the same storms that flooded Dairy Lane, produced a lot of tree damage at all of our sites. We had one tree fall at the Exborn tank site. Limbs and branches fell from trees at all of our other sites. So this led to our 2023 tree maintenance project, where we had a consultant, an arborist, come out and assess all of the trees at all of our tank sites and make recommendations for trees that needed to be removed or trimmed up. So out of that plan, a total of 31 trees were removed across 4 of our sites. Exborn having the most trees removed, and then we had 6 trees removed at Hersom, 3 at DeKoven, and 1 tree at West Belmont was removed. The outreach around this maintenance project was door to door. We did door to door outreach to homeowners at 3 of the 4 tree removal sites. We did not do any to the West Belmont site because there was only one neighbor at the bottom of the hill, and I think it was felt at the time that there was really no impact to that neighbor, so we didn't outreach to them. But it did include written project notices, including scope of work, the name of the contractor, the project dates, and our intention to plant new trees. The radius for inclusion of these neighbors was pretty informal. It was based on an assessment of potential neighbors affected. There was no 300-foot radius determined. It was just, we had a staff kind of walk the neighborhood and give his best judgment of which neighbors would be the most affected. And so that's who we reached out to. We sent notices, delivered notices to 33 neighbors around the Exborn tanks. Just for comparison, we did 109 notifications to the same neighborhood for the tank recoding project. So that was a big difference and a big shift in our strategy there. 20 neighbors around the Hersom sites and 9 neighbors around the DeKoven tank site. So out of all of the sites, the engagement with the Exborn neighbors was by far the most extensive. They were the most vocal, we could say. The other sites didn't really generate any feedback from any of the neighbors at all.
Sorry, is this about the trees or the tank?
About the trees.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we're talking about the tree project right now. So all of the interactions with those neighbors were again tracked with, phone conversations and logs of who contacted which neighbor, what the conversations were about. So it's actually very well documented. We have a lot more documentation on these interactions than we do, say, from the El Camino project. There were 2 homeowners on Exporn Avenue who actually live in the city of San Carlos that were not included in the initial distribution. Maybe it was because they were in the city of San Carlos. I'm not really sure. Maybe it was their distance from the active work area. But we did hear from those residents, and one of them was here in February. We started hearing from them in December of 2024. They met with our field staff a few times out in the field, and they also met with the general manager, and at the time, our other operations manager met with those neighbors in person to try and address their concerns about the trees. We received a lot of different kinds of feedback around the trees. Most neighbors, I feel appreciation that the trees were removed. They were hazardous trees. One fell on a house. And some of the neighbors expressed their desire for continued screening. So because we took out the trees, it did remove a significant portion of the screening from the tanks. So they were not happy about that. This slide is to show some of the challenges that we actually have at this site with the conditions and our ability to plant new trees. You can see in the picture to the left on the right-hand side where it shows all the little X's. I don't know if you can see that, but that's where the power lines are. So all of those trees were growing up and into those power lines. They had to be removed. As you can see, it's probably not a good place to plant future trees for the same reason. There's steep slopes around the majority of the perimeter of the site. We have buried water lines within those steep slopes. So there's very limited room for trees to be planted. In general, it was recommended that we just maintain the trees that we do have left after we remove I'd say 31, or no.
Produced 21.
Yeah, 31 total. So we worked with an arborist and also with the city of Belmont to select trees for replanting, and made our best effort with that. They did require us to replant 15 trees, which we've done 12. We still need to replant 3 more trees, and 2 of the trees that were planted are dead, so they need to be replanted. We're meeting actually with the same arborist next week to go out to the site and find a place to put those 5 additional trees.
And this is at the export site specifically,
Mhm.
that those 5 trees will go in.
There's no irrigation for any of the trees there,
Correct.
it just drives right down.
We don't,
We've been manually irrigating the new young trees while they establish, so
Okay.
it is time intensive, but.
and this slide just shows a little bit better of a visual of the site constraints. You can see the slope there. Those are the eucalyptus trees planted there in the slope. So you can see that's not a good situation. Those trees get blown around and get really heavy when it rains. And then in the front of the site, I think this is Altura. Yeah, Altura Way, where the cul-de-sac is there. You can see where the water lines run along that slope and then cut straight down the slope and into the street. So we also don't want to plant trees on top of the buried water lines. So overall, the lessons that we've learned out of evaluating the way that we do outreach is that we would like to default to a much larger engagement radius. So again, going from the 30-something residents that were initially contacted about the trees to over 100 where we contacted for the tank recoding. We have noticed that the in-person and Zoom workshops don't really get a whole lot of interest, but the neighbors do seem to appreciate the one-on-one meetings, and which obviously takes a lot of staff time as well, but they do seem to appreciate that more. We did get pretty good engagement, regarding, the online survey that we did for the Exporn site. So I think when people get information in brochures and are pointed to something like an electronic survey, that's easy for people to do, right? They don't have to take time out of their day and show up to a meeting, and they feel like they're being, given the opportunity to participate in a meaningful way. Neighbors who don't have complaints generally engage less. So the people we do hear about are usually the ones that, I don't wanna say have complaints, but things to say.
They engage more.
Engage more, yes. And overall, I think, if we do come up with an outreach plan, we want to make sure that any staff that is participating in the outreach are trained on, general communication techniques, de-escalation techniques, things like that, and that we're very consistent in our messaging so that we're not promising things that we can't keep. So. And my slide. Yeah. So yeah, we would just, we'd like to open it up and for discussion and feedback. These are just some suggested items where we might get your feedback on. Is there a specific geographic boundary or radius or preferred notification technique? Should we prioritize digital first methods over traditional town halls or door-to-door in-person meetings? Do you have a preferred frequency? How should staff communicate and handle situations where project constraints conflict with neighbor preferences, such as the Exporn site limitations versus the screening preferences of certain neighbors to not look at those tanks? And success metrics. So what matters most? Target survey participation. What kind of metrics do we want to see? Response times or documented issues and resolutions, communications logs, and those types of things. So, general, how do you think we're doing and how can we improve?
Thank you for such a thoughtful retrospective analysis, especially things that you were not even here for, and it can be very hard to resurrect those bits of data. So really appreciated the.
Sure. I mean, we're all a little newer, so there were.
Yeah. I mean, I like the idea to expand the geographic boundary a bit. It seems like that's a good idea because sometimes, it's somebody who drives by the site every day, and they'll be caught by that larger radius. Even though they don't see it every day when they're in their home, it could still bug them, So I think it's a good idea. I heard your comment about the intensity and time commitment required to do door to door. And I'm wondering if we do door to door in the close-in radius and then do the door hangers and things like that beyond that radius so that it doesn't take quite as much staff time, but people who are really impacted, like for construction or something like that, they can have their say and hear and interact. I'm a little concerned about digital only as the first method. I just think for many reasons, the demographic of homeowners and people who live in Belmont, there's going to be some people who, honestly, I interact with people who are like text and they give me a quizzical look and I'm like, never mind. You know what I mean? And there's other people who are like, I get 200 emails or 300 a day. I can't read all of them. And I think the thing that works is the most old-fashioned thing, which is the mailers and the door hangers. I do like the idea of using those to drive somebody to an electronic portal to get feedback. That I love. Like, I think you guys did that for the paint color, right? I think that's a really, really effective way to marry the two.
Yeah.
So those are my strongest reactions, but we can talk about the other questions as well.
Good. Anybody else?
When you talk about city agency coordination, I'm assuming that's fire and police. I mean, do they care?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, certainly the fire, because if it's a pipeline project, we coordinate with them on location of fire hydrants and those kind of things. Typically with police, we coordinate if there is closures, like street closures but we assume that through the Public Works Department that we coordinate with on all projects, that they would route as needed, but the fire department, we coordinate separately with. Okay.
Hopefully we don't have to coordinate much with police. We generally don't, other than.
Or you coordinate with police, if you have complaints, for example, and some complaints may not be, coming in as a little bit too aggressive, then obviously,
Yeah. We've had police escort in certain situations, we have to deal with, not, maintenance and construction, but other issues. It's not too common, but it does.
Yeah. And even this whole thing, I mean, it emerges because it just so happens that a tree fell on a house. So then, but the tricky part comes in, and I think you kind of touched on it, Sarah, is when you have the periphery of our service area and then beyond, whatever we do here, it could hit somebody who is not in our service area and who is not on our mailing list and who's not going to get the door hanger, but they are close enough that they could be affected by it. So that's something that we need to be kind of conscious of, just like the situation where we had Cal Water customers and they're not ours, but they were directly impacted with that, so.
Yeah, that is probably one of the biggest lessons learned, especially when you're doing a mailer. It's way easier to expand your radius up front.
Yeah, but as far as you tend to gravitate towards your pool of addresses, those are our customers, so you take care of the customers. But,
Yeah, it's easy for a resident to throw a brochure away if they're not interested, but.
yeah.
Or rip it up.
And sometimes line of sight for some people, could create this whole thing about the unsightly things, so sometimes you have to imagine who is going to be looking at, in this case, at a tank from a distance, so, or it could be blocking their view or whatever.
Well,
Yes.
question, so when we do the 300-foot radius, that extends out beyond our service area, or are we only looking at people in our service area in the
Well,
300-foot radius?
That was the lesson learned.
Yeah.
It has to go beyond our area sometimes,
Okay, so, because I just assumed the radius versus
Huh?
Usually if our service area.
Yeah.
For example, the corn tanks are right on the border.
right,
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have a number of facilities all around the edges of our service area, so yeah, we're definitely now looking beyond.
okay.
And sometimes the efforts that, and you hinted on that too, about the amount of time that it takes to meet with people or try to meet with people, and they don't even show up, it's just like, seriously, and you spend 2 or 3 hours for nothing, so we don't have that luxury of time and staff that we can just, and so I think the direct, the door hangers and, it's the one that, but that somebody's going to see it for sure, whether they read it or not, that's different.
I'm sure we get the vast majority, I'm assuming, that with a door hanger or a mailer, you're probably gonna get the vast majority of people say, okay, this is what's happening. I'm
And that's the
educated on
least
this.
expensive too.
Exactly, and then I think I like the idea that if someone does have a serious concern, that we can have a one-on-one with them to escalate it up, because that. Is much more, I think, efficient and pays dividends in the long run to not blow somebody off. To let them, be heard.
Julie.
So we had back-to-back projects. You were talking about, Director Cotton, like my nightmare scenario of a pipe, my nightmare scenario was we had a project on El Camino Real on the west side in front of all those businesses from the city limit line all the way down to Ralston, close to Ralston. Just imagine all those businesses on that side. And then, once we got done with that, we went on OCR, Old County Road, from Ralston all the way down to F Street. So those are back-to-back projects over the last 4 years, and I guess as far as disruptions go and complaints, we didn't have a single person come to the board, right? Like OCR was right there, like right, all these businesses, all the outreach and the amount of time that we spent thinking about making sure that the disruptions were minimized and building the relationships. I think we're talking about pre-construction, what we do, but really the biggest thing that during these construction projects is having an inspector out there that's empathetic and builds those relationships with the customers, our clients, our customers, their ratepayers. And I think that this district has really invested heavily on making sure that we do that during construction projects. And the result is that no one shows up, right? Like, you don't have people showing up here saying, this is a really sucky project, this is a, because it is affected their livelihood, right? Like, we're literally built, we're shutting down their business for hours at a time, potentially. But we didn't have anybody show up because I think we did that due diligence ahead of time. And then we're honest and we stayed on schedule as best as we could, stayed on schedule. And so I think overall, I think as Sarah said, I think we do a good job. We could always improve, but overall, anecdotally, just because, what we've seen on past projects. And then the one thing I like to add to Sarah's project is on non-major, like the OCR or El Camino, all of our neighborhood projects, when we have water main projects in our neighborhoods, we send a post-construction survey. And we ask them, hey, how did we do? What can we improve on? How did it go? Are we, and so those results we share with the board, and I know we have 3 new board members. You haven't seen it, but some of our some more senior board members have seen those surveys come in. So we get about 15% return on those, but it's a 1 to 5, and in general, we've scored pretty well. It's not that the project wasn't disruptive, it was just, we did and then the last thing I'll leave you with is the meeting you guys had with the neighbor up on DeKoven, right across from our DeKoven tanks. That neighbor experienced a major construction project, the DeKoven Lincoln Avenue construction project, which was really disruptive. The contractor wasn't the cleanest, if you recall, but his feedback was, hey, I think the inspector, what did I wasn't there, but the inspector was, thank you for having the inspector out there. The contractor was not good, but the inspector was, hopefully it's the same inspector on the DeKoven tank project that it is.
Yeah.
So those relationships are being built, and I think that's really important too.
Yeah.
And people need to want to be treated with respect and to give them the importance of how they're feeling and all that.
Being heard.
Yeah, that's great.
And then you get one that has a bad experience, they're gonna tell 10 people. And so if you get, I think, also the experience of people saying, boy, they tore up my street, but they did a great job, everything went smoothly.
Yeah.
People will convey that as a positive experience as well.
And that meeting, I don't think we actually shared it in detail. There are several neighbors across from DeKoven. Obviously, they're right across from DeKoven and their tanks, and they're very affected, and they know, and they check in periodically knowing that the tank building project is coming. And so I've met with them twice since I've been here, and I know Michael's met with them quite a few more times. They're very engaged, but we met Sarah and I, Michael, and also Faridun. We all went over, and they were lovely, and gave us coffee, and we met and
No
talked about the
tequila.
project.
Yeah.
That's different. And we discussed it, so the upcoming project and the timeline and all of that. And then they actually, after a report on my Form 700, they sent flowers. Which arrived on my birthday.
That's really,
Somebody else.
but that's a really good sign. That's
So-
super helpful. And even though it's an anecdote, it gives a really good sense of how positive, even though it was a
That's trust in the community. Once you've established it, and that's the hard part, and losing it and trying to recover it is very expensive and painful.
Yeah.
So this is very, very good.
I think we can also divide it between like before, during, and after. I like what I've heard about the after. I like the surveys. I think what we're doing before makes a lot of sense. The one piece I haven't heard a lot about, and it's gonna be project by project, like if it's a one-day thing, there's no during, do you know what I mean? Other than there's someone out there that somebody can talk to. But for long projects, just to make sure that people either get a mailer or something like, oh, you know, if there's been a significant change, if there's change in plan relative to what it was, that would be my only ask, but it sounds like you must be doing that, or because even like for the projects that Juven described, all it takes is one business owner to go and talk to the ones on either side and be like, let's show up at that meeting all together. Even if you're not upset, be upset on my behalf. You know, and the fact that that's not happening is, in my mind, an excellent sign. I don't think this is like, sometimes, you know, when it comes to people speaking up, there's sort of a rule of thumb that says one person, it represents 10, what 10 people are really thinking, but I don't think that's the case here. Based on what you're saying about the neighbors, about the businesses, I think those are, they're really are actually one-offs, which is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And I could speak about during the construction of major projects, we have a staff there full-time. From the time a project starts in the morning until the last person leaves. And that's the person that develops a relationship with the neighbors. That's the person that has the neighbors have the card for their cell phone number, day or night, weekends. We've worked around weddings, we've worked around deliveries, furniture deliveries. Someone is pregnant, is about to get due. We work around, you know, making sure they have access, you know, 24/7. So it's the relationships. At the end of the day, what I think is really is important is having that inspector have that relationship with the customer and they feel comfortable. And it's the trust. I think, you know, if we say something's gonna happen, we gotta make sure it happens at that time. But having that staff member there and knowing that when the neighbor walks out, they see the person, right? And they can go up to them and talk to them and because what we do is messy, right? It's not clean and we have really small streets, right? And so, you know, having those surveys and saying that neutral or positive things after we've disrupted them for so long, it's, you know, it's good.
So, Sarah, the biggie. How well trained are our staff?
Yeah.
And how well trained are they to know what not to say? Because that's the thing that sometimes, you know, we make it very important to our staff to be nice to people, to be nice to the customer, to the.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, you get a little bit overzealous. Because this is what we did there, so therefore this is how we do it. It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, a traffic stop, you know, a police officer yapping away, and then all of a sudden he goes like, okay, stop, I'm gonna call my sergeant. And the sergeant, you know, says and promises. So there has to be somebody who knows how to. You know,
I think generally our staff in general, you know, do a really good job of representing the district in a professional way, not over promising and saying the right things. And that's without, to my knowledge, a significant amount of formal training, which is something that we can look into. You know, we could look into a little bit of public engagement training for people. The one incident is really like kind of a one-off. Right, there was one person. He knows, you know, we've spoken to him and it's sort of an ongoing conversation with a particular person who tends to overpromise things. And so it's holding the people accountable who do go off in different tangents, you know.
because, you know, our customers out there, they sometimes they don't know the difference, you know, you have the uniform of the water department. So you are the water department. You are the water district, you are the general manager for him, for her, you know,
Yeah,
because that's who they see out there, you know,
Yeah.
so.
I mean, usually it's gonna be, you know, the project inspector or someone from the construction team.
Yeah, yeah.
In that case, in
Somebody
the
a little
case, you
bit
know, it
more.
was just a small project, that it was just, it was handled very small and internally.
Yeah.
Well intended.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
you know, before you even get, we had a situation where we had to, replace driveways or replace, damages that were done, to cars and all that because of the main brakes, whatever it was. So, but even the people out there, they shouldn't promise things, even though chances are that we may have to do it anyway, but just don't promise anything at that point,
Yeah.
Just be nice, calm people down, and then bring somebody else who has the authority to speak, and so that's gonna be.
Yeah.
And-
On that.
I can talk a little bit more broadly too, like we have had formal de-escalation training last year, maybe 10 months ago. And that was really helpful, and so that reinforced a lot of, de-escalation, how to appropriately escalate to superiors, and I've seen that work very well multiple times. We're very fortunate where we are, we don't have a lot of negative conflicts in the field, but it does happen. We did have an operator post the de-escalation training who was shoved, and, that worked well. He, had his training and, was able to walk away and deal with it appropriately. And there was an instance where the messaging was not as consistent as it should have been,
Correct.
and we
Yeah.
now are very sensitive to
And,
knowing that can happen, and
in defense of everybody, and maybe we'll wrap it up here. We don't get a lot of complaints, so when we do get a complaint, we'll make a big deal out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I was in council meetings for most of my career, and everything goes like, there's another complaint, just bring it on,
Yeah.
But, so then we get one complaint or a couple of complaints, and we go like, oh my God.
We're having
to be council, one complaint a year.
You show them the mail.
All right,
Yeah, well, yeah, as Dr. Cotton alluded to, we do have one particularly grumpy customer who we call them our love notes.
Oh.
Any item we mail out immediately, it's a great test to know that mailers have.
That's
they've
what
gotten
you
it. Exactly. Tear it up,
Touching it.
remove their address, put it in an envelope, and address it to some very colorful. So the latest was to criminals from the most pricey water district in Belmont, California. That was the water line.
Take it away from me, it's like, okay, you can call me a criminal for whatever, but Tommy.
So those happen.
This
We
is
are love
great.
letters,
There's a lot of cranks,
but
but they're usually hard.
they're colorful, but maybe not well articulated
Yeah.
complaints.
so, Sarah, did you get
Yes,
Feel like you
the
got
gist
that.
here enough?
I think so.
All
Thank you
right,
so much.
cool. Okay, so shall we move on? So we have the quarterly water conservation and activities report.
Yes. That's just a.
First, I want to just share that Drew is very recently married as of this last weekend, so.
It was a wonderful wedding, really fun, and yeah, just great time to hang out with friends and family, and yeah, it was a good time, so.
Good, good. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, yeah, thanks, Kat. Okay, so just a few items here, so just update on the urban water management plan. So basically underway with drafting that plan. As I mentioned during the last report, we received we were waiting on information from San Francisco to incorporate to the plan. We received that at the end of March. That information, among other things, includes some like common language that's basically intended to be used by all BOSCA member agencies within their plans. There was a lot of chapters and sections of the plan were affected by that language that we received. But the most complex of which is a chapter 7, which focuses on water source reliability and drought risk assessment. Basically looks at future scenarios of water shortage, and how we can basically provide water under those different scenarios. There's a lot of language revolving the Bay Delta plan and uncertainty of that plan. That was discussed in that common language from SFUC that we are incorporating into the plan, including some data tables looking at different supply conditions under those different scenarios with and without adoption of that plan. So, a lot of information to digest and incorporate. Other chapters as well include, elements from that common language, the demand projection section, water shortage contingency plan, and then the demand management measures. So, we've been working on incorporating that, sifting through and incorporating that language into our urban water management plan. And our goal is to have the plan up to the board for adoption as well as the public hearing during the July board meeting. So that's just current status of the plan right now. For the strategy 2050, so if board members are unaware, BOSC is working on a strategy 2050 project. It's a long-term planning document, basically looking at different water supply and demand scenarios for the Bay Area and all the BOSC member agencies. And looking at different potential future scenarios that the Bay Area could experience in terms of different development scenarios, different water supply and demand scenarios, and looking at how we can adapt to those scenarios and develop certain alternative water supply projects to meet any potential water supply shortages. So it's basically a long-term planning document looking at different contingency plans for that. Part of the workshop was reviewing different projects and actions that would provide different supplemental water under those scenarios, and to receive feedback on those projects and actions, as well as to look at some preliminary modeling results that Hazen Sawyer is working on to basically put some hard numbers on potential range of future supply and demand outlooks and how those fall under those projects and actions that BOSC is developing. So just they shared some preliminary results. I think unsurprisingly, demographic changes as well as regulatory pressures were some of the biggest drivers of variability of water supply and demand in the future. But they'll be sharing the full analysis of that work in August. The lead to BOSC's water use efficiency roundtable workshop. So this is workshop number 11 that BOSC will be putting on next Tuesday on July 2nd. I've been asked to present at that workshop, basically talking about our efforts to collect our AMI data. Basically, it's a smart meter read data, and our plans for how we've been collecting and archiving that data and what we want to use that data for. Other agencies will be discussing their own where they are in that process of collecting and analyzing that AMI data. It offers a really awesome opportunity for us to understand customer water use patterns. And it's something that not a lot of agencies are using other than just for like leak detections for customers. So it's a huge opportunity for us to use that data and understand it. But it's a big hurdle to actually obtain the data, get it in a usable form before we can actually start to analyze it. So a lot of agencies are at different steps. And I will say most agencies aren't even anywhere near, beyond just using it for leak detection. So it's something that is on a lot of folks' minds, but it requires a lot of effort to get there. So it'll be an interesting workshop. Just a few public events that have been going on. So we celebrated Earth Day with the city of Belmont on the 18th. We got to debut our water shot mascot, Penny. So it was a lot of fun. Kids and adults, everyone seemed to really like it. She was a big hit, and it was a great event. We also had a public works open house that was last Thursday, and a couple others coming up, National Night Out in August, and then Belmont Water Dog Run in September. Beyond that, just some information on some of our WELO projects that we've had this year, and then some minor activity for some of our rebate programs. And yeah, that's all I have for that.
I have a question that actually might be for President Vela. I'm not quite sure, because it might go more with Bosca, but recently read a fairly detailed article in the LA Times about their water districts down there, looking at when they're going to need to bring recycling online because of the issues with the Colorado River and that whole, I mean, they're really gonna be seriously impacted much sooner than we will. And my real question is, are we able to learn from and kind of see what technologies they test, adapt, try, work out that we may want to not necessarily deploy right away, but just kind of keep an eye on that, because they're on the front lines worse than we are in terms of water supply issues due to reductions of snowfall.
Yeah, and yeah, it's two totally different water system.
Yeah, it's
But at the same time, even in our strategy 2050, it is mentioned, that, desal and alternative water supplies and all of that, even for up here. Even though when we read the water situation right now, I'm gonna say that we are at 100%.
right, it's okay.
100% full, okay? And we had rain today too.
I know.
In May. So we're not in the same situation for sure. In Los Angeles, it's a different, it's the Colorado, and then they have what's another project that they have?
Pure water ones
No,
Now?
the other supply, where they have what's it?
beside.
Well, they have you mean the aqueduct from Monterey Owens Valley, or? Cause I think that's most of the water.
Yeah, they do have, an alternative, water supply, the name escapes me right now.
The state water project.
They have to start seriously thinking. For us, we're just broaching the
I know.
desal and all that, because we want it to be as an option.
That's right.
Is there a need for it? There's no need for it at this point.
Exactly.
Okay? As a matter of fact, our fight here is how much to release
Yeah,
into the rivers,
Yeah, exactly.
and that's where we're going back and forth.
Yeah.
So, it's like, you can't even compare the two. However, desal is not new, even to the West Coast. I mean, San Diego, they have it,
Right, yeah, and
So,
LA isn't even, this wasn't even for desal, this was to treat and clean wastewater and be
Yeah.
able to recycle it, and not just onto lawns. And that's why my point wasn't not so much we have to do something now, but just, is there a way to keep an eye, just watch what they're
we
doing?
are doing
Boat
it,
shopping outfit.
we are doing it here, so.
Love it.
And you know what, and we
Love it.
are actually talking about, putting that recycled water from wastewater into our system.
Exactly, so thank you, thank you very much,
Yes,
I know, it's a
So, I mean,
they're in a
Matt
different
could
situation.
probably talk for about
We're
2
the
hours.
plant that's gonna be providing the wastewater that's gonna do
I
this.
did, and I really appreciated it, actually, and I remember the little trailer and all the experimental work, and it's
Yeah.
great, I mean, really, it's great. Honestly.
And in Southern California, there's pure water, San Diego, pure water, Southern California, pure water SoCal. There's like a whole litany of pure water
Interesting.
going down that are
Yeah.
all wastewater into potable water. Most of them are what are called indirect potable, so it's going into a reservoir, or it's getting pumped into the ground, or something like that. The regulations allow for direct potable. Whether the public appetite is ready for that is a different story, and so I think we have about 15 years of outreach before that's gonna, we have 15 years of outreach and a 5-year drought ahead of us.
Right, that's right.
Accept it.
Agreed completely.
But I think pumping it in the ground could be done anytime,
Yeah, not here. Here's gonna go up to Crystal Springs.
Yeah.
Same thing. So we'll treat it. It'll go up to Crystal Springs, and then San Francisco pulls it out of Harry Tracy, and then they will put it back into the system.
A helicopter's gonna pick it up.
$600 million pipeline.
Yeah.
Helicopter might be cheaper.
Might be cheaper, exactly.
Thank you, Drew. I meant to thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, the Strategy 26 is gonna have a number of those different types of projects, including some, wastewater reuse listed in turn, and including potential cost and potential supply yield and all. So, yeah, they're looking at all this huge range of potential supply alternative projects.
Drew, question for you. Any idea how many percentage wise, how many agencies within Boston have AMIs?
That is a great question. I do not know. I know not all of them do,
Yeah,
a majority for sure, but I don't know.
It's less than you would think. They did, I think part of Strategy 2050, they did a review of it and they produced a map. I don't think I can't remember if that was a map was gonna be public or not. But it was kind of a survey and it was surprising to me that it wasn't fully and widely adopted. So, but there's a number of agencies that are working on adopting it now. So we were
Because the
one
other
of the
thing
earliest
is-
to be fully.
Yeah, we've had it since
Exactly.
2019.
Yeah, adopting the AMI is one thing, and then gathering the data from AMI that it's capable of
That's the
bringing,
whole
that's
thing.
a totally different
And
thing,
we got a big surprise, which is I think one of the things Drew's gonna be talking about when we went to pull our data to support the drought study. And we realized that the contract we have only requires census to save 3 years of data, so it just disappears.
Oh.
3 years pass, so that is why, what, Drew will be talking about is why we archive our own data now,
Yeah.
so that we
Yeah.
don't lose it.
And it's,
And also even just asking census to produce the data that they do have was very frustrating and surprisingly difficult, so.
Yep.
Those are a lot of fun lessons learned.
But yeah.
The other lesson we have with AMI is, yes, we put them in we finished in 2019, but they are not fooling about that 10-year warranty. On the batteries and registers, so that's, now an ongoing, planning and replacement project, so,
that's one of the ideas for using that data is to be able to potentially look at and predict when meters are starting to reach that point, so we can be proactive about replacing meters. So, yeah, that's one of our goals for looking at the data is to look at some consumption patterns and for meters that have failed to see if we can have any sense for meters that may be getting to that point.
All right, very good. Thank you, Drew. All right, Busker report. So I had the meeting last week. And mostly included the approval of the proposed work plan and the operating budget. We are at that time of year, so we'll be hopefully adopting the budget in our next meeting. And we gave the CEO or general manager the approval to negotiate and execute some professional services agreement. The board policy committee had the report and we had to count their action and as you probably know, Bosca has like 9 employees. Okay,
There are 22 board members.
very.
I know.
So they have to use outside contractors and, and that's what we approved last time, including some of the engineering reports that they produce, the legal, obviously, and many others, and we have to use those, so. And we say that we are, in Boston, we are lean and mean, so. We had also the SFPC report, which again, gave us the 100% capacity at this point. And then we had all the environmentalists hearing all of this, so, why do you keep all that water? Why don't you release it? But, out of the transparency, this is the way it is, and we were having rains at the time, and we're still having, a little bit more precipitation. Snowpack is not as good, and I'm sure that either Sarah is gonna be talking about that later on, a little bit, she said, okay. So some of the the one thing that we also approved, which was the first, is that Bosca hired an HR consultant. And the reason being was obvious, and it was very, very awkward the way things that were done is because there was one of the employees who was kind of taking care of the HR. So if there was a discussion between an employee and a supervisor, it happened in a room where other people could hear what was going on, and it was not a good situation, so. And the thing is that it was all dependent on this one person, this one employee. So if this employee was sick or gone or whatever, kind of things kind of stopped. So it was decided to hire an outside consultant. And hopefully it will be, this outside consultant will be helping me as the chair now to go do the evaluation of the CEO. That goes under my purview. Other than that, we did not have a closed session because there were no. I mean, there's a lot of things going on, but there was nothing that was reportable to the Bosco board. And that's the consultant. That's one of the main point. Pat, did you go to the
I wasn't able to attend the WMR meeting because I was at Aqua and also my internet was not working
okay,
from there, but Sarah and Drew both did attend.
okay. Add
Yeah.
something else to this?
I can add a little bit. I did ask Drew to stay just because it's more his world than mine, so he may need to fill in some blanks, but, yeah, so they did talk about the after incident report for the 66-inch Calaveras pipeline leak that happened. So in January, a major leak occurred on a 66-inch steel raw water pipeline connecting the Sonoma Valley treatment plant to Calaveras Reservoir. The post inspection revealed that the root cause for that was a degraded valve ball bearings fell out of place and jammed the gears. So they have to stop sourcing from Calaveras immediately and maintain the supply through the San Antonio Reservoir storage. Emergency ties were deployed with Valley Water and East Bay Mud, and a request from Alameda County to shift sourcing to reduce demand. So the repairs for that were initiated by a contractor along with SMPUC, Water Supply and Treatment Division crews, and the pipeline was refilled and returned to service by February 10th. So it was about a week's worth of crisis to resolution. They did it after incident evaluation and it's one of the positives, internal and external coordination and frequent status updates were noted as strengths. And then areas for improvement around that incident were internal communication on priority work orders, as well as post-work pump testing, intertie operations, and pulling in outside electrical contractors to relieve in-house staff earlier than what they did. So they did an analysis, and I believe, Aqua was also, or Bosca, sorry, it's still on.
Yeah.
I cannot. I had 25 years of Bosca.
Boston.
Then there was the 2025 demand study, the drought task update, which was where they historically evaluated the drought restriction periods to see what type of lasting impacts on consumption was had with demand levels remaining lower and peak seasonal variability declining. So they really saw the biggest post-drought effects after the 24 to 2017 drought. And that those effects were strongest in single-family and residential demand, mostly within the SFPUC customer base, not so much elsewhere. And that And likely reflecting like permanent landscape adaptation and outdoor irrigation, behavioral changes. The other drought episodes and customer classes like, commercial, industrial, multifamily were a little bit more ambiguous and less conclusive. So, that's what that study and that model revealed. They did an annual review of the tier 2 plan allocations. So the tier 2 plan is for what allocations get made between the BOSCA member agencies during the drought. Tier 1 is the demand allocations for the SFPUC customer range only. So BOSCA conducts annual reviews and tracks agency populations that might increase by 5% in between surveys. So they evaluate under a 10% system-wide shortage. That would result in a 17% average wholesale customer cutback. And for the district, that translates to about a 15% cutback. And under 20% system-wide shortages, which would be a 28% average wholesale customer cutback, the district would face approximately a 25% cut. And from what Drew has told me, we don't see any issues with meeting those, and we've met those types of cutbacks before. Yeah.
Drew, anything else, or that's pretty much it? Yeah, the other thing that was brought up was the HHU tour. And I sent emails out, and I think Pat sent some emails out, which is the 16th and the 17th of June. For those who can go on this tour, I highly recommend it, because even at the BOSCA itself, within the 26 agency, there's a lot of them who have never been up there. And unless you go up there and you see it for yourself, it is a little bit more difficult to kind of talk about it when you don't know what's behind that water that comes to us, so. And sometimes based on the comment that some people say, you go like, some of them don't know what they're talking about, but they still mouth off. But anyway, but it will be a very good educational thing to actually talk about, see, and actually visit, so.
There's two when they usually calendar those tours.
Not the exact date, but usually, around June and September, or June and October,
Okay.
They do the tours in the summer, and SFUC does quite a few tours. They only open so many up for BOSCA, but they have their goals to get.
You can also sign up directly with SFPUC if you can't make the BOSCA one.
Oh,
But they do them, Steve Ritchie and Allison do them every 2 weeks.
Yeah, they're
They're up there all the time.
all
Yeah.
summer, they're up there.
Yeah. Usually they stay late on the winter months, but other than that, so.
Okay, great. I actually, yes, I was curious about dates, but also how much in advance do they pick the dates? Because my problem is that like 2 weeks from now, there's no way that I would, you know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
So that's what I meant, like if I.
You want to plan, maybe
Yeah, exactly, and
Couple
then I'll
of months
mark,
or 3 months ahead of time.
yeah, and then I'll mark the dates and be sure. to,
Yeah, I think if you go online, you should be able to see those dates, yeah.
On
On the SFPUC.
Oh, SFPUC, okay, okay. And the SFPUC runs all of them, and then some of them are designated BOSCA?
No, but see, the SFPUC are the ones that run them, okay?
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
So then they offer it usually to water professionals, and the people on BOSCA are either in the water business or on a council. So, but they have that representation of the water in their agency or their jurisdiction. So that's why they offer it to those people first, because they're dealing with water policies.
Of course.
How good, would it be for some people for everybody to actually see? That's how it works.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I can reach out to SFPUC, and see if there's any other tours available.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much.
But Richard,
Sure, Allison would be
Yeah, I'll send her an email tomorrow and.
Oh, yeah, Allison, well, she.
Not this Allison, other Allison.
No, not Allison.
Allison Castro.
This Allison is like, this is.
No, I've got my volunteer if you want.
I'm good, I'm good, she's saying I'm good.
Still wanna go down the elevator?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
come back, I'll take you down the elevator.
That's the tour I wanna go on.
All right, cool.
Great, thank
Very
you.
good. Okay, so we'll go on to management and board reports. Financial report. For the month ending April 30th.
Yay, just moving right along tonight. So April 30th, we're 10 months in, so you would expect if everything was even Steven, it would be about 83.3% of the year. But we know things don't move evenly month after month. So it looked, when I was reviewing the water charges, the commodity charges over the past few months, I noticed that we've come a little under target when we base it on averages by month. But I'm happy to report in April, we're going back to our regular trend of exceeding our expectations. So although the number says 83.1% of the budget, we should be at 83.3. We still have two of our largest months coming up. So
Yeah.
we're definitely ahead of our projections for our water commodity charges. So yeah, the next big thing that I wanted to point out was, we've already talked about the 196,000, talked about interest revenue. So, interest for our various investments, whether it's PARs, it's LAVE, it's our treasury ladders and whatnot. Basically they've exceeded our expectations for this past year. The help with Will Panson, they've provided some sound advice. And, the COPs, those investments have done really well. And then we also have some money market funds that have done better than we were expecting. So we're expecting about 3.5%, and we actually averaged about 3.75, almost 4% throughout the year. So interest is definitely up and trending. Salaries and wages, we're at 83.4%.
James, if you were to take a stab at the average interest, what would the number be?
Average interest of all our investments?
Yeah.
I would say we've been, I would say about 3.5%, 3.5 to 4%. Somewhere right around in that range.
Some a little bit more, some a little bit less.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I can definitely take a look over the past
Yeah.
over the past 10 months and report back out next month.
We did better than expected.
Yeah.
Okay, what was that number?
Yeah. Salaries and wages, we're at 83%, so we're right where we need to be. Payroll and taxes, we're at 91%. A couple of the things that you have to keep in mind for that is we pay our insurance invoices 1 month in advance. So when you look at April, you're looking at 11 months worth of payments, not 10. The other thing that we look at is the reimbursement, the HSA reimbursement that we submit in January. We recognize half of it in January. So that amount basically accounts for January through June. So you'll see essentially the 6 payments, related to that. Purchased water, it's down just a little bit, but down to 76% of what we're expecting. We are still missing 3 invoices, so I do expect that to actually match what we're expecting. The only other thing I'd like to highlight here, of course, is debt service. So we made our debt service payment on May 1st, so you won't see that payment here, but you will see that next month. And so that number will just line up beautifully at that point. Our cash and investments has grown as compared to last year by $1.6 million, and that has a lot to do with the timing of our revenues versus our expenditures. So I mentioned that purchased water, we're still missing a couple invoices. Expect that to take a nice little chunk out before when things even out. But it's 4% greater than it was at this time last year. Capital, we have spent a total of approximately $2.9 million on capital, split between debt financing and pay-go. And we're continuing to draw. There was a couple more drawdowns this last month that needs to get accounted for, and then we should be able to get that to get some solid numbers here by the end of the year, shortly. And then finally, the reserve analysis, you'll see, you know, LAPE right now is trending at 4.08%. Wells Fargo, you know, we have a sweep account at Wells Fargo, and that's actually trending about 3.5%. And then you'll see the different interest rates for money market funds is about 3.5%. And treasury notes range anywhere from 0.5% to 4.37%, depending on how much they are and when they mature. So overall, we have total cash and investments. We have about $54 million. And you'll see that our working capital is still 100% funded. Our capital reserve right now is still pretty solid at 87%. And then our 115 trusts are more than adequately funded. And then we will continue to build that reserve for debt service once that debt service payment is made. So. And that is the abbreviated summary. Yes, Director Cotton.
Only because it's an 18,000% increase.
Yes, yes.
A good board member. What is that train wreck right there?
Oh my God. So.
Bad debt is.
So bad debt and claims, you know, that's actually, so the 22,000, of course, still falls within our overall budget
Yes.
amount.
I understand.
But I'll have to get the detail on that because that did happen in the past month when I was gone and I did not get a chance to
I
review
didn't
that.
fund your European vacation.
It did not. I actually should have thought about that.
Gotta think quicker on your feet there.
Yeah, no.
Well, I know that's an item that we historically haven't wanted to put budget into, so that we would not have people looking at it going, hey, you got money sitting there for me to buy.
Yeah, and you know, for the past since I've been here, we have not had bad debt.
Yeah.
So we've had, I think it was $200 for a claim
This
for
wasn't
that.
the car accident,
Say again?
the car, somebody hit our car.
The car was only about $7,000.
Oh,
So I will get an answer back to you, at the next meeting.
I asked the question and I'm like, an only answer. Nico had one, I forget it though.
While we're on weird questions like that, the lease of physical property, where do we lease and why?
Please.
Yeah.
The towers.
So we have towers at the tanks and then is it Folger that we,
That's right, we had to take them down
Yeah.
while we did exactly, got it, thank you, that, I remember, thank you, that's fantastic, yeah. And what are systems surveys?
So system surveys on normal typical years, they include surveys for leaks and cathodic protection surveys. The oddball we have in here is actually what we talked about earlier, the transmission main assessment. And this is the one where it always catches us because we tend to think about it as a capital project. It's in our capital plan. It affects, obviously our capital planning. But the accountants tell us because we're not actually making improvements on the system,
Buildings and.
it has to go in operating.
Yeah.
And so that's where it falls. So it will always be this odd blip in the operating budget.
Thank you very much for explaining that, and that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, the other surveys are on the order of like $30,000.
and thank you for buying that time, Director Cotton. The bad debt is like bad debts and claims. So we had, we paid for an Alameda main break. We paid that paving company, Bay Area Paving, for that main break. And so that's
The
what
fire
that is.
department.
So.
Oh, we're
The one
get
by,
that money back.
No.
Boston High School.
And this does not give the address. I just looked up the,
Cowan High School, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's on Alameda, so.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
All right, good. Any
Great,
more
thank you so much.
questions or comments on this? All right. Cool, Lee. Thank you, District Engineer.
Yes, thank you. So the several projects I want to talk about, the first two have separate reports, so I'll come back to those. The Lower Notre Dame Willow Main project, it's under design currently. And as when you approved the budget, or when you looked at the budget, it was budgeted to be constructed next year. So that's the $2.4 million budget, capital budget that it's in the budget for next year for construction, so we'll finish up the design and then we'll roll right into the construction and go out to bid. State Route 101, some positive news that I wanted to share this past month. The Division of Drinking Water issued a permit for the project, which is a really big major step there. A lot of facilities on Shoreway, and they usually come back with comments and ask us to look at certain things, but in this case, they must have been busy or we did a great job. So we'll go with the latter. So they just gave us a permit.
I have to ask, sorry,
Yeah, no
I've been here a little over a year now, and this is the first time I've heard of the State Division of Drinking Water. What is that exactly?
There are oversight, the state oversight, for drinking water, agencies. And so, they come out and inspect our facility every 2 years, I believe.
Yeah, sanitary survey.
And they look at our tanks, they look at our operations, they provide feedback, and then we hold a permit through them. So we have a number, basically, it allows us to operate, our operating permit.
Okay.
And then whenever we have a capital project, and this has started about 10 years ago, whenever we have a capital project, they've asked us to submit the plans to them and have them look at our project. And what they're looking for is essentially how close our water main is to sanitary sewer.
Exactly.
And they were very concerned about the interaction between us and the sewer department, sewer stuff.
Service.
But they are also who we submit our water quality testing to. Really just everything related to operating our system, and we pay annual fees to them, but for permit to operate.
And then if we have like a main break, or if we have a boil order, or if we during our routine testing, we test positive for bacteria, we have to.
They're the one who enforces us that we have to do.
It's a division of the State Water Resources and Control Board.
Oh,
And this entity has moved a couple of times within the state. I think there used to be. Yeah, weren't they their own department?
Or Department of Public Health.
Yeah, Department of Public Health, yeah, they were, and then they moved under. Now they're a division within a department, another department, so they've kind of moved around a bit. So,
Thank you for the detour.
yeah, no problem. So we got our permit, which is great. The project is in San Carlos. We don't really coordinate much with San Carlos. So we have maybe less than 10% of our district is in San Carlos, probably closer to 5 actually. But this project is a major project and it's all in San Carlos. And so they're not used to working with us and we're not used to working with them. So we met with them. We've been coordinating with them, but we thought a face-to-face would be great. So we went there, Kat, myself, Sarah, Michael, our project manager, Kurt. So 5 of us went to their public works department, and I think the entire public works department was in that meeting. We had the public works director, the city engineer, the principal engineer, associate engineer, and I think an inspector, maybe.
it's just a public works structure, wasn't there?
That's true. That's true. Who came from Belmont, Tracy. That's right. We have one person.
What you knew.
So it was great. It was actually a really positive meeting. We went in not really knowing what to expect, and there's gonna be a lot of traffic impact on Shoreway, obviously, and then with Recology and the trucks going in and out, and on weekends, the public going in and out, right? Like, because it's open, the transfer station is open there. So a lot of coordination on the traffic control, et cetera, but really a positive meaning, no major issues, no roadblocks. So they asked for a traffic control plan during the design phase, which we've done for some major projects like OCR and ECR. So that's not a problem. And then we got the 90% plans from our consultant last week. So we're starting the review of that. So we're on schedule for a September, October start of this project. So this is a major project. So this is the one we're tunneling underneath 101. So one major hiccup that we're working through is the engineer's estimate that we received in May or in March. We got the project managers changed again at our consulting firm that we had hired, West Yost, and We got another engineer's estimate, which was considerably higher. With a new project manager, so we're kind of working through what that is all about. We actually had a meeting this afternoon with them, so along with their operations chief. So it's escalating on the West Coast site. So I don't want to report more there because I just don't have the information. Literally, it was today, so. Tacoma tanks work is progressing there. We're also on two fronts. One is on the design side and another one is on the antenna side. So we're working together on both. And then the transmission main assessment, it was the contract was awarded. I'll just go through the detailed progress payment real quick on DLNO. That project is done. The only thing that we're waiting for was good weather for the slurry seal, which is that black coating on the protective layer on the asphalt. That was placed. It went well. And there's some pictures there. And what I wanted to just talk about is if you could flip to the next page, Allison, or 2 pages, 116. At the bottom of one up. That one, so that's a breakdown of the costs, and we'll have a breakdown of the change orders when we go. So we're accepting the project next month. And that's a formal process where we take over the ownership of the project and we own it at that point. Right now, the contractor is responsible. But one thing I wanted to point out was we're at about 3 or 4% on change orders. So we'll provide a breakdown of those change orders. We budget for 10% because that's about the average for underground construction. We target 5%, and we've averaged over the last decade plus about 2.5%, 3%. So that's also where the more change orders we have, the more impact to our residents we have. So that's another plus that we try to point out. So any questions on the pretty pictures of the black asphalt on the last page? So if you remember a few reports back, it was complete. Those streets were a complete mess. Right? There was stuff all over the place. So we like to leave it better than what we found. So okay, no questions there. I'll really quickly go over the tank project that we have, which is the West Belmont Exborn. We started out by including a memo. You've seen this memo. I'm looking at page 123, Allison, if you don't mind. This is the final version of the memo we handed out last month. Essentially, you saw a draft, and this is just the final version. We cleaned up some stuff and formatting and so forth, and then it just gives a complete background of the rafter issue that we had talked about last month.
Yeah.
And again, this memo wasn't in the board packet last month, but it was on your table because we just finished it off. But this is the final version, so I just wanted to make sure you had it. Nothing new. We're replacing the rafters as we talked about last month. So, and then on the progress payment, the very first progress payment for the project, this is 128, Allison. Just kind of goes through what we've done for the project. On the West Belmont side, we're on schedule. So West Belmont tanks will be filled hopefully either next week or the week after. No issues there as far as anything delaying the project. And then on page 129, where we listed out some potential change or not potential, but change orders that we've talked about, the rafter replacements and then the quantity adjustment for West Belmont.
After the rafters are replaced, do they get recoated?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that'll be inspected?
Yes. We have a full-time inspector, coating inspector on site.
Lovely.
And then also there's a 2-year warranty that's built into the project. So after at 22 months, right before the 24 months, we have a coating inspector go in and look at
Yes.
the coating and poke at it and just make sure that it's adhering. And so it's a pretty robust QA/QC now and then during the warranty period too. And most of the failures for coating occurs in that period. So
Thank you.
so this one, the change orders,
the material of the rafters, is it gonna be the same as it was before, because those are, how old is that tank anyway, roughly?
Let's see, I have it in the, it's not very old.
Not that old.
Let's see.
It said 20 years old.
Yeah, I think it's 19 or 20 years old. I have it in the top memo, but the coating was not correctly applied. We should not be seeing that kind of failure at that age. Absolutely not. So.
And then do you do, we're going to put in a fan or something like that, or it's not really
We
necessary?
will, we're looking at it. We have some, on, West Belmont, we're certainly putting it in. On these tanks, we're a little concerned about the noise that they may be, because of the sensitivity of the neighbors. So we're gonna examine it, when we put it into West Belmont, just look at the noise level that it creates and then possibly put it here.
Thank you.
So there's pictures, on, as part of progress payment number one, but really nothing. I mean, you could see the pictures of the ceiling failures and then and some of the other pictures that you've seen, but the other main thing I wanted to point out is that, we've also now instituted a more robust, asset management of our tanks. Instead of waiting until we visually see some sort of failure to bring an expert in, we're gonna do it every 5 years on a controlled schedule. So that's something that is also another lesson learned. Okay, any questions I can answer?
One question, just looking at this picture on 138.
138.
Yeah.
Yep.
So was there any debris that ended up falling into the water supply?
Yes, yes, most likely it did. This coating is safe for drinking water. It's a special type of coating. And typically what happens is the water does not rush out unless there's a fire hydrant that's open and so forth. So what happens is the tank itself, the inlet outlet is 3 feet higher than the bottom of the tank.
So
It just kind of settles down, and that's by design, so that if there is any kind of sediment or so forth, it settles down. And every few years, we go in and we kind of vacuum and clean out so the tanks are designed to capture any, because in general, and especially for us, since we get water from SFPUC, the Hetch Hetchy system, and it's not filtered, we do get some sediment in our water, and so it settles out. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right. Very good, thank you. Okay, Admin Services Manager.
All right, so I'd just like to bring to your attention again, I know I sent you an email regarding the general election filing period, but since we have 3 directors that will be on this, I just want to make sure that you all have the information again. If you need any help or questions, guidance, whatever it might be, feel free to reach out to me, but all the information in regards to webinar, and their email and phone number is in my report for you guys to access easily. So at the start of the month, I got to attend the Aqua JPIA conference. This was the first year that I got to attend. Director Cotton and General Manager Wolfing and I got to all go, and I would say that it was very interesting. I was very glad that I was there. I was very interested in the AI conversation, if they had been able to really have it. But with the amount of, I'm not even gonna call them questions, it was just the audience just making gripes and statements that like they didn't get to the girth of it. So I was really hoping I was gonna get a lot more out of that conversation, but everything else was great. Something I'm really excited about is Company Nurse. I've used Company Nurse in past agencies, so I'm really glad that JPIA is bringing this on board. And it's just a workers' comp tool, and it really just kind of does a triage of injuries. So staff will now call an actual nurse on the phone. They start the workers' comp paperwork for me. And then from there, they triage the employee, they tell them if it's something that they can just take care of at, at work, at home. If they need to just go to an urgent care, or if they just need to actually go straight to an ER. So I've designated all of those spots where they can be directed to, and I'm very excited for that to be implemented June 1st. And then if you recall, a couple of months ago, President Vela let us know that he had witnessed some of our staff driving not so safely. And so on May 13th, we had our defensive drivers training, which we all got to enjoy and attend, and it was riveting. And I threatened them all that if they drive like this again, we were going to make them do it all again. So yes, it was good.
As something to consider, having been the recipient of some of those complaints myself, we put GPS trackers in all vehicles.
Mhm.
And it get little alerts when they excessive braking, excessive, so we can go and monitor should someone actually call a complaint.
Okay.
The way I pitched it was, if you're driving safely, this isn't an issue.
Agree.
If you're not driving safely, then we're collecting data, and if someone complains, we're gonna have it. So, it's like $1,000 a month for us for the vehicles we have.
How
Yeah,
many vehicles do you have?
Not that many.
Okay.
I mean, like maybe 15,
Okay.
because we're a plant. It's all
Right.
But it also is
Yeah.
all our assets, all our trailers, so you can if someone steals it, you also then know where they are and all that kind of thing. So we asset all of the. So just something to think about. And then you can, if you want, Palo Alto had it. They would geofence the local Starbucks and the local Pete's and the local, because we had a lot of crews out in the field. And so if anybody parked with them, but then they quickly figured out where the parking geofence was and they park outside. So it didn't really help in the long run.
They just walk
Just
along.
walk a little farther.
So we actually looked into that following the break-in at the courtyard and the theft of one truck, as well as the theft of the keys of all of our trucks. And so we had a call and learn more with Verizon and looked into the other options out there, focusing primarily on the theft issue.
Yeah, this is
And it's so easy to disable.
Yeah.
If it's an aftermarket
Yeah.
thing like these would be.
Now, this is
So we
more for
gotta-
driving safety.
And but there's also like the driving safety.
Where
And
the locations are.
to be fair, the complaint from President Vela is the first one I've had, doesn't mean they're not out there, so it's kind of. And there is actually a history, under the 2 GMs ago. They did have GPS and there was a habit of, I feel like you perhaps needed more to do.
Yeah.
Of not using it very productive.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can, Palo Alto didn't use
So there's
productively
kind of a
either.
trust
The way we are doing it at SCW is, it's really gonna be a complaint driven thing. No
So-
one's gonna look at it unless you get a complaint.
But
Yeah.
if we kind of, points pick up or, anything else changes, that's definitely an option that work on.
And it was like, and it gives us data. If you're driving safely, I can respond to the complaint and say, look, I have GPS on the vehicle. There's nothing unsafe to happen. That we can measure, so.
So I could just hear the employees that Bella guy.
Well, I will say that. I've had-
You're just figuring this out?
He come up to me
That's why I said
afterwards
again.
and ask, was it me?
No.
Did he name me? Cause he would recognize me in the car and I was like, no, he did not name
No,
names.
let me, I'm driving, so this is the funny part. I, as a GM,
So you
driving
threw
to
me
work
under the
one
bus
morning.
with the law?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm driving to work and the car in front of me is blowing through stop signs. And we're going, if you run to the facility, like all of a sudden it starts now, please don't be going to SCCW, please, you're going to SCCW, my God. And it was an employee blowing through stop signs in front of me and I'm like, oh God, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
I told the person she reports to and they had a conversation.
Good.
That was it.
Well, I'm glad they still spoke to me today.
Yes, I
The
did.
employees.
Well, so the day you reported it, we had a safety meeting that day, so we
We were
talked
all-
immediately.
Yeah.
And then, obviously.
We called the special safety meeting
But I
just to announce.
No.
Yeah. One last thing I do want to put out there is just because this is my favorite part is whenever we get customer praise on
Yeah.
our employees. I think it's definitely a need to highlight. So Dustin Swift, who you guys have met previously, it takes all of our customer service calls. So when the office gets the calls, we call him, send him out. And our payroll specialist, Liz, who does answer the phones on occasion, she received a call from a customer complained of a leak. This was an elderly woman. Reassured her over the phone and, walked her through what was going to happen and called Destin. Destin went out there. There was no leak. It was just something that needed to be turned off. Totally fine. But the customer praised Liz and reassuring her and was just very grateful that somebody answered and talked to a human and an actual human showed up at her door. And the time response was within a matter of minutes. So that's very typical of the interactions that they get. We don't always hear about them, but I guess it's okay to not always hear about them. So, but just wanted to highlight that one.
Thank you. That's really nice.
Sid?
That's it. I can keep talking if you want me to, but
And we had a little event today.
I mean, we did, but I was gonna say that for tomorrow, like my next month's report. We had our employee appreciation lunch. I would say we all looked adorable in our shirts.
Can't wait to see that.
We were cute. You have your own bowling shirts.
Yep.
I think our newest employees were completely shocked. One of them being Andy, he walked in and he was just like, he's like, this is nice. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh my God, your shirt. He's like, do I get one? And I was just like, oh my God, yeah, of course. It was
Genuine amazement.
it was like pure amazement. He was so excited. They all had a great time. They all enjoyed themselves. So the fact that we are able to do this is just, I'm appreciative on behalf of the district that we able to do this for the employees. So it was a good time. Very much.
It's important to do.
It's very important. I'm super glad that you did it and people enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah.
It's wonderful.
The bumpers didn't help my score.
No, not at all. But that's okay.
Next time,
Excellent.
annual event.
And thanks to Director Condon.
How do you like that shirt?
I think, I think.
How do you like it?
Back.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great. I love.
Yeah.
By next year, I won't have my current employment. I'll be able to show up.
Yeah.
Next year should be an evening. We're gonna do alternating. Oh, then I'll definitely be able to.
Yeah.
Evening, just work conflicts, so daytime.
All right, very good. We'll move on to ops manager.
That's me. All right. So as was mentioned a little while ago, we are talking about some site improvements at Folger, looking into getting that stormwater and electrical work done there. Nothing else on Folger at the moment. Dairy Lane, we did get our survey back from BKF, which included a thorough analysis of all of the easements that are on the property, which are numerous. Lots of people have claims to different parts of the property. But so the big news there is that we did get the planning application submitted to the city of Belmont. Last week. Yeah, so that was exciting. And the Romig Engineering structural, subsurface analysis. Geotech, that's the word I was looking. They came back and it's not fully conclusive, but we are not gonna need to do like piers or anything like that. So they're looking at their report a little bit more and coming up with some recommendations, but I think where we're heading is more like a slab. They call it a concrete surfboard versus the existing foundation, which is not like a perimeter foundation, but they're like spread footings. So not consistently spread, but like here's one. So we're gonna replace that with a slab. So that'll be more structurally sound than what we have, but not as extensive as we were fearing, with the soil conditions being a little more stable than were anticipated. So that's good news. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Julian already talked about 101 and the tanks, the Tacoma tanks. We are working with a lawyer there. We've drafted a letter that will be going out to T-Mobile and Crown Castle, reiterating our need. Pretty strictly reiterating our need for them to get their equipment off of our tanks.
Again,
You know, just letting them know what an important project this is to us, and that they are right now the ones holding it up. So
In my experience, Crown Castle was here.
they don't,
No.
yeah, they know it's clear.
it's been communicated many times, but this is more strongly
Yeah.
worded.
I mean,
Yeah.
you could just hold some like wire cutters up there with pictures.
Money.
Well, that's
lease,
partially, that's kind of what the letter says. We have
Yeah.
leases expiring, so
The Hallmark
Big
lease
money.
expires this year,
Yeah.
and the equipment tanks expire in 2028. So that's kind of our leverage. So hopefully they listen. See, other than that, just nothing really out of the ordinary as far as operations go. Things are running smoothly. We only had one small system repair. And let's see, I did want to talk about a little bit more about the surplus items. The other item that was on the consent calendar was the items that were over 25,000 that we are absolutely required to come to the board and get your all approval on the disposal method. But I just wanted to give you a heads up. We do have these other items. We have 3 newer items. Well, not newer, but new to you, hearing about it, that are under $25,000 that we're also putting on the surplus list. So a brake lathe machining tool, a sandblaster, and an old Segway scooter. We don't really anticipate those are gonna net too much, maybe a couple $1,000s total. But I wanted to let you know that we're also putting those on the same govdeals.com to auction off. And then we have 3 pieces of equipment that were previously approved by the board through these resolutions that are listed here from 2019 and 2021. So the Ford Fusion Energy and a couple of large flatbed trailers that did not sell the first time that we put them. So we're relisting them. So I'm just noting that here, really just FYI for your information. We did go, we had our cross connection control program specialist and myself and Allison and President Vela attended the May 7th Harbor Industrial Association meeting, and Trevor presented on our cross connection control plan for the HIA members. And we also talked to them a little bit about the local hazard mitigation plan, completing some of our required outreach there. That went over generally well. Trevor had a little bit of an experience with one angry person who didn't want to pay more money because of regulations, but I think he handled it fairly well. The county has published the local hazard mitigation plan, including this is our annex. We've been doing a lot of outreach around that. We said the May HIA meeting. We have the flyer posted outside on the bulletin board. General manager shared during the March meeting. We have an article in the water line. We've taken flyers to the Belmont Public Works Week, and we also have information on our webpage. Definitely meeting those outreach requirements. And then as far as the regional water system and weather update, snowpack again is, as you've heard, is not great, but the reservoirs are full. Precipitation for the 6th station 6 station precipitation index for the water year in 2026 is around 102% of the median to date. The Hetch Hetchy system itself, the Hetch Hetchy station, I should say, received 6 inches, a little more than 6 inches in April, putting it at 92% of the water year median to date. And the graph below just shows the cumulative water year 2026 precipitation compared to the median from 1991 to 2020. The current year is in the red. And the regional system water delivery. The average April delivery rate was 203 million gallons a day, which is a 2.5% increase compared to the March delivery rate of 198 million gallons per day, and that's shown on the graph on page 152. So the 2026 meter deliveries are the black line compared to the averages, and then a couple of the dry year, the wet year, and last year for comparison. And you wanted to see the drought monitor map. So this is just the current map as of May 14th, which is when I did this report. They put these out weekly, so I can start putting them on as reports. But this shows the drought conditions for the entire US. California is showing just some abnormally dry conditions. Looks like on the eastern Sierras. Otherwise, we're not looking as bad as some of the other areas in the country, like Florida. Looks pretty bad.
Yeah.
And then on the last page, it just shows the fire potential. So again, most of the state is currently at low risk. So this May rain is kind of a nice thing to wake up to this morning. A nice welcome. So hopefully we won't be heading into the moderate or severe risk anytime in the near future.
Yeah.
Thank you for including those.
Yeah, very helpful.
Yep, we're almost in the summer. Monday, first day of summer, right? Oh, all right, yes, Monday, yeah, Monday, no.
No, summer I think is like the 21st, like that's when the.
Or Monday is June first.
Yeah,
There you
it's
go,
just
June
the beginning of
21st, correct, correct.
Anyway.
All right. Well, any questions for the operations manager? Good job.
Yes.
All right, general manager.
All right, so if you recall, we submitted a request to several federal electeds, including Congressman Kevin Mullins' office, and our Hallmark project was selected for appropriations. We had a couple staff members from his office actually come out and visit Dairy Lane. Sarah and President Vela and I met with them. I got to obviously share, a lot about the district. We had the model out, and so they actually really enjoyed looking at the model of our system. And had some really good conversations with them. They're very supportive of us. The final numbers came out last week of what they were able, once they got past the appropriations committee, what they were able to get into hopefully the budget, which is about $747,000 for the Hallmark tank project.
Nice.
So it is
Fantastic.
less than the 9-point-something million we asked for. But it is definitely a big win. When you look at the other projects that were awarded or, on the list to be awarded, and their original ask price, it's very consistent. I think a lot of the numbers are there in the $700,000-800,000 range, regardless of what the full project cost is. So, but this is wonderful, especially with a Republican-controlled Congress. So I don't know all the details of the process. There's still a later approval that has to happen before we're fully awarded, but it's a big win, I think, for us.
Congratulations, thank you.
Trying to help on that budget, the capital plan budget.
Who from his office came out, just curious.
It was Eric Lukoff and Mario Remember his last name?
I-
There you go.
I-
Yeah, it was not the person to you.
Yeah, okay.
It was good, and I need to re-follow up with them, but they did mention that they had a colleague working on a bill related to emergency planning that they were interested in having us discuss and give our input on, so. So that was good, and, you know, I went to obviously the Aqua GPA Summit as well as the conference. You know, I have a little bit of detail in here, so they did implement this very interesting concept called parametric earthquake insurance. And it's a very new concept. But the idea is if there is a major earthquake and we're affected, and based on the location and the intensity and how far we are away from that, what they do is they will calculate an award and we will immediately get that payment. We don't have to file a claim. We don't have to take all the time to add up all the damages. The goal is to get that money in the hands of the district so you can respond and work with it and not deal with all the red tape, because it's no surprise we're all going to have damage if that happens. And so that is a lot of very complicated math going into to all of that and how it's calculated. But it's a big and very progressive change for them to do. So
Yeah, does that depend? Could it be any earthquake, or are they betting it's like you only get it if it's like 5.2 magnitude or?
I don't remember the details. They talked about it before they implemented it with those details. They didn't go to that level, but I think it has to do with definitely the severity. I think it even included the depth and and how far you are away from the impact zone. So it's not, but it's meant to be, and they also, I think, divided into regions. So like if you're in this region, you get a payment, and then so it's a lot of work to figure out what that is, and hopefully
Yeah.
we will never have to know, but it's great to know that exists.
What's the magic around the 746,868 number?
I don't know. Random
Does
number generator.
Brisbane got 746,868?
No,
And so did Burlingame.
they probably had a pot
And so
number they
did East
divided
Palo Alto,
equally,
and
but
so did Foster City, and so did Mid-Peninsula.
yeah.
And did 746,868.
I didn't play with the numbers, but I bet they add up to something round that they've got split. But I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking like it was a percentage of
A
some.
car for you and a car for you.
Well, it looks like all the water stuff got that much, and then, you know.
Who knows?
Community centers and libraries got the same amount.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so yeah, that number keeps on repeating itself, what's going on?
Yeah, not necessarily a percentage of what we asked for, or like a
Maybe
random.
somebody went to the slot machine and.
Right.
All right, good. Any questions for the general manager?
As I did want to highlight that Aqua, so they've been working with having an interim executive director for a while now, and they did select their new full-time executive director who will start September 1st. And then you might have heard Carla Nemeth will be now the director of Aqua. Since 2018, she has been the director of DW1. So I think she's not finishing out her whole term. She's starting off early, so that's interesting, but she certainly hopefully will be able to do a lot of good for those water agencies. Also, there's the water line as you've got, and you'll notice it included a survey, a customer engagement survey. So please fill it out and respond, so we'll get at least 5. I think we've gotten 2 responses, so we'll get 7. But you know, our thinking, we kind of debated back and forth, do we want to provide some kind of incentive, or how do we want to but we figured this first time that we're doing this, let's just put it in the water line and see what the response is as a baseline.
Yeah.
We're also gonna put it in the CCR, and we're gonna have it on the website. We'll, kind of get it out there. And then, the next go around, the idea is to repeat the survey periodically and collect data over time. But we'll see if we want to adjust, if we want to have a raffle or, other kinds of options to encourage participation if we feel we need it. So
Does it count if we participate?
Sure, your customers. Your payers. We don't, it's a anonymous survey. There are using SurveyMonkey, there's some tools, like it does log what your IP address, so and it flags suspicious data, like if you go through it too quickly, which I did as a test, and it flagged me right there, like, as saying, like, this is, I forget the term they used, but it was like, questionable response.
Suspicious activity.
And if you get, 20 responses from the same IP address, it flags that kind of thing, right? So but otherwise it's anonymous. And one other thing I wanted to highlight is that we did meet with San Mateo Consolidated Fire Department leadership. It was the chief and one of the deputy chiefs, and I believe every battalion chief was present. So it was a great meeting. It was really productive. We obviously talked about the incident that we recently had that resulted in a main break, but focused on how we can improve communication and coordination, and we were already seeing improvements, and it's turned into a great thing. At the end of that meeting, I was introduced to their newer emergency manager, who said, "Oh, we have a training tomorrow that would be great if you could come." To be fair, he is newer in that role, but as is typical, water gets forgotten.
You possibly refuse.
So it was a FEMA, actually trainers from FEMA came. It was a senior officials workshop for all hazards preparedness. Ideally, we would have invited board members, but not with 12 hours notice. Yeah, not ideal. So I did clear my calendar and attended. It was well attended by a lot of folks from Belmont within the city, electeds from San Mateo and Foster City.
So this was not the start, this was all hazard?
Yeah, I mean, it was paid for by FEMA. It was free to, us here, but, hosted. Actually, the company was Teaks, but they're, contracted with FEMA. And it was, kind of really geared towards kind of higher level, it was, a training in the tabletop, as they typically do. When you walk through, the decisions and communications that you might have to make, but it was very helpful.
Was it a specific exercise you did, or?
It was a very broad, like loose kind of exercise. It was a lot of just at your table discuss, as opposed to you are this role, we were all the same role of,
But the incident itself, did they choose a specific incident, or?
Yes, it was a flood in San Mateo County. Like, it was very, very reminiscent of the floods that we had in 2023.
Yeah.
I don't think they called it a holiday, but they started from that. They added a few more little, twists. And there are two more trainings that are one's on cybersecurity and one's for PIOs that they're having in the next several months that now we know in advance, and so we'll be having a few of us attend those. So it's good. So all of this is good. The timing was fortunate. We had that one meeting, but it's what it is.
I was kind of wondering, what did they have to say about that water main break from their side?
Yeah, I think we did a good.
Or what
Not,
usually come up?
Too much on the defense, but they did definitely start off on the defense. They had a lot of questions of like, what do you mean we did this? This is what we should do. If we know to close things slowly, of course we should, we did, but it was like, well, let's talk about why this situation was so particular. And really was related to, we have the PRV that was engaged at the time. And so with the PRV, it's such a slow reaction time because that water has to travel like a mile. So as slow as they think they're shutting it off, it's not slow enough for the distance of the PRV. And there was, well, why doesn't this happen every time? Well, the PRV is often not engaged, and especially during the daytime, because the way the system works. So this was a little bit of an oddball occasion, but it was all the more reason, like, if you had informed us of this training, we would have turned it off and we would have helped to harden the system against that, knowing that that's a risk. And so, but it was a lot of back and forth, a lot of them learning about our system. And, you know, how we can work together. And already they've been better about informing us of trainings. Felt like maybe they were testing us because they kept having trainings on weekends to see if we would, you know. But
I mean, even if it was, you know, actually an active fire. And they had to go, I mean, there's no emergency in shutting a valve.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if the fire is out, then you have plenty of time.
Plenty of.
Yeah.
And as you're closing the valve, I mean, the person could actually hear, even the vibration will tell you, you know, sometimes that you are maybe going a little bit too fast, or there is a lot of still movement of water coming in. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, they could put
Yeah.
all the excuses, but those are inexcusable.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and so, you know, we're gonna work together. We've already had, you know, folks go out to their trainings and help kind of just share during their trainings. We're gonna work on making a little bit more formal, have more kind of meet and greets between staff too, so they can kind of get to know each other.
I don't know if you talked about this last time, but when they did this training, did they inform us that the training was going on ahead of time?
They did not.
So that's
Well, and there was a little bit of a breakdown in communication
All right.
on that too. So what happened is they called our main line, didn't get someone to pick up immediately, didn't stay on the line, which would have taken them to dispatch, and they could have gone to us. They admitted they were impatient, and they said, "Oh, okay, we can't get them. We're done." So they have, you know, I think you know, they said that day they were going to send out an email to everyone to make sure they know, always stay on the line. We've also now for active fires, we've because Belmont PD is the dispatch, we're now in the process and working out the bugs of it, of getting notified anytime there is an active fire.
Yeah.
So that we can be on notice and checking SCADA and whatnot. So there's a lot of very good things coming from this.
Yeah.
And I actually, the other day I walked over to El Grande to grab lunch, and there was one of the battalion chiefs, the one in charge of training, was getting picking up lunch and
Perfect.
chatted, and it was, you know, great.
Really good. All right, anything else? Good. Any questions or comments from the GM? Nothing? All right, good. Director's report? Director Puck, anything?
I also attend the Aqua JPA, was very informative, just looking over some of the. Obviously, all the breakouts we attended, emergency preparedness, response coordination, mutual assistance, coordination was pretty interesting discussion. And we can probably talk offline about how that works with San Carlos and others, but one of the things I noted down is that they were saying, you know, in most of these kinds of emergencies, emergency response doesn't see water as like a utility, they just see you as a public health thing. And so it's kind of some of the feedback from some of the folks in the Q&A at the end. What else was interesting? Newsom was very excited about Carla Nemeth coming on when he did his speech, so she comes quite highly recommended. The cybersecurity, I went to 2 of those sessions. One was just basically water sector defense and breach response. And then there was another one with was actually in the exhibit hall for a company that, I mean, this guy did a great job. I don't know if you were at that one. What's his name?
No.
Frank Rye. I think he did a great job of basically scaring the crap out of everybody in the audience about security, access. What did he say? Something like it takes 242 days for most IT services to actually detect somebody's in your system.
Oh, God.
And
That's crazy.
Yeah, he said, you know, the problem now, and he used the analogy of that's no longer the days of somebody hacks into your system and does something. Now it's like going down the block and finding an open house, going inside in basically watching you for weeks, months at a time to see what your treasury's up to, what your operations is doing. And, you know, working through all of your interconnectedness to see what's going on and then make some move there. And he predicted that there will be a major attack on water agencies, he believes, in the next 24 months.
Well,
That will impact significant water agencies in the state. And I'm like, that's
What's the
pretty
basis for that?
alarming.
Did he share it?
It's just that it's, you know, they're, you know, the usual nefarious actors out there, and they're probing and testing a lot right now. But he thinks just with the escalation of global developments that there are efforts out there by bad actors. I mean, a lot of this is ransom kind of things and how those work, but this could be a more asymmetrical, you know, response to government position or something we do. And they decide to, and he said it's more likely smaller agencies because they're less prepared than some of the bigger ones, which was also wonderfully encouraging. So,
And the opposite of what I would have
Yeah.
intuitively thought, like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna go for New York City or
Yeah,
some like
knock out a
single
massive
system
town.
that's big.
yeah,
Yeah.
so anyway, it was very informative, all the sessions. Very interesting speakers and stuff, and they were certainly worth one.
very good. Good to tell, anything? No, we're good. No?
Nothing to report. Sorry I was late. I had walked in from work today and had a friend of my wife's had passed away, so.
Oh, yeah, we're so sorry.
Sad thing is her son's wedding is next week too.
Oh.
Good. Sorry, Covington, anything?
Not for me, but next month I will be going to the financial stewardship seminar, which is the same day as the Hachachi tour. So I'm staying behind to do my kind of literature. Actually, I have a full calendar anyway, but that's one of the things on it. And the Director Patel and Director Cotton are going to attend the candidates webinar on the 24th. I also have that on my calendar as well for June.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Planning to attend
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Fourth of June?
June, yes,
Yeah.
yes, I just haven't found the place to sign up for it, but I am gonna.
Yeah, that's be helpful, yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Good. All right, so I did attend the HIN, we had very good presentations, by the way, by Sarah and Kevin. Travis.
Trevor.
But anyway, Trevor, yes, he had one very challenging person in the audience. And at one point, I was kind of starting to worry a little bit, so I tapped Sarah, I said, Sarah, you know, but he was pretty good, he was pretty good.
Yeah.
So, but it was very well
I
received.
went up to stand next to him, but he handled it.
Yeah.
I was gonna jump in, but I didn't have.
Yeah, no, he did good. So anyways, and then I thought that meeting at Dairy Lane went very, very well. I mean, you could tell that they were so receptive and very excited, and so I was hoping that the money will come through, and it looks like it did, or at least it's in the
As much as
process.
they can.
It's in the process, yeah. Cool. All right, good. What else? Communications, anything?
None.
None? That's it then?
That's it.
All right, cool.
Right.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Did you have any?